Hi. Hello. It's another episode of Passive Pixels. This time it's going to be a special episode. This time we're going to focus on Bond. Yes. I've been watching this shit for the entire year, and finally we got to watch one in theaters. So, hey, I'm going to give it the breath that it needs. And because of all this, I decided to bring the entire nation, the entire UN of people who have watched this movie, which involves a Canadian, a Texan, and a European. So, I think I got most of the basis of the world that actually matters. Dorian, how are you? You're the resident Canadian. How are you?
I'm doing very good, Ed. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. I have a double Texas representation in here. And speaking of that, Poot, how are you? How are you?
I'm doing okay, given my extraordinary mic woes. My mic worked all of my last appearances on Passive Pixels, so now logically it decides not to work. But
The thing that I hate is that I now associate woes with Canadians because of Drake. So this actually hurts me more than it should normally. Speaking of Canadian, other places that I don't care about, AJ, how are you? And over there in foggy London. I'm cutting that out. I fucking hate that term.
Oh, I'm not in London. That's the first thing. And then you also identified me as
what?
a European as well, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. I mean, it's true in a geographical sense, but maybe not an
AJ,
ideological or political sense. But yeah, I'm
I
doing well.
just want to other people. That's what we do on Passive Pixels. We other the others, and then after that, we hopefully can get to a civil war where everyone just hates each other. I like to think of us as the American media.
I guess the other way to look at it is that I take ownership over all of Europe, which is bigger than Britain. So I'll take it as a compliment in that
No, it's okay,
context.
AJ. You are representing all the people who I would never give a voice to. If it were up to me, like if I was a leader of any sort of landmass, I don't think I'd be able to give you guys rights.
Okay. Yeah, well that's fine. I mean, that's never going to happen, so
I know.
it,
Yeah, especially because of the way I'm recording all this. There's no way I'm ever going to be in a position of power.
so totally meaningless to me, but
Yeah,
Accurate.
I mean, I
spooky.
mean that's passive pixels in a nutshell. So totally
Accurate.
meaningless.
I I just want to say that it's heartwarming to see that we got a Brit to get on the James Bond podcast because, as we all know, representation matters. So
Absolutely. I'm going to just say that I'm black for the rest of the episode, so no one question that, please.
okay, fair enough.
All right. We have all gathered here for reasons. We have Bond to talk about. Now, let's go ahead and just get this out of the way immediately. No time to die. How do we all feel about it? AJ, give it to me first, since your opinion matters the most, since I'm assuming Bond's like your cousin or something.
A few years ago, there was like a attaché case full of James Bond DVDs and artwork and all that stuff, and I got that from HMV when I was a child. So
Hmm.
Bond has grown up with me in a sense. But I like No Time to Die. I think I'd rank it in terms of the Craig films probably third. I think Skyfall and Casino Royale are better, and Quantum of Solace and Spectre are much worse. But I thought it was good. If you were going to sort of like divide between good and bad, it's definitely on the good side. There's sort of a thing with Craig's films previously where he seems to alternate between like a good film and a bad film, and this kind of sticks to that in that it's good.
All right. That works with me. Dorian, you watched it, what? I think the most recent out of all of us last night. So how
Yeah.
are you feeling?
Well, I forget probably more than any of you because of my memory, but
Accurate. Same.
let's see what we can do. Actually, I basically agree with everything AJ just said, so I guess we're going to form a British Canadian collation here. But
Of
yeah,
course.
no, I.
Mm,
Oh, the Texas Coalition is joining together. We'll see how
keep
this
an
goes.
keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, no doubt. No, I agree with what he said. Basically, it'd be the third of the Craig movies. I think for me right now, I think it's a good movie. I mean, the only thing I would add is I think you were, and maybe I'm wrong about this. I can only speak from my position of where I've seen them, but I think a lot of your enjoyment will directly tie into how much you've cared about the Craig trilogy as well, or the Craig movies as
No,
well.
no, it's a trilogy
Because
now. Okay, we don't talk about Quantum. We don't talk
fair,
about Spectre.
fair, but they are important. They are the Spectre, especially, unfortunately, is kind of important in
Yeah.
this movie, which we'll talk about later. But no, I think it's if you've enjoyed the Craig movies for the most part and you've got invested in this and how they've done these movies, then I think this movie is just going to hit harder for you because it's perfect capping point for it. So I really enjoyed it.
Beautiful. Poot, Texas Coalition, tell me, are we on the same foot or no?
I kind of hate to do this, even though I'm being honest, but I'm kind of along the lines of the Canadian and the Brit.
Oh, wow.
I will say, I suspect out of all of us that I probably like it the least out of us four. For reasons that I'll go into later on, but overall, I did like it. I will say it is up there with Skyfall in terms of the most well-made films, in terms of the look, and some of the shots and some of the transitions. And I think probably the best overall acting performances as well, especially from the two leads. But yeah, generally I liked it. It is, third for me, like AJ said, and yeah, I was satisfied with the payoff and the wrap up of all of it.
All right. Then I'm gonna go ahead and say second place. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's gonna be more because of Casino Royale than anything else. We'll talk about that whenever we get to that part, but I very much enjoyed this movie. I am very happy about it. Honestly, I don't know what they could do after this that would make me happier. But then again, I still want them to do it because literally Bond is the only movie now that still has opening credits that elaborate now, that I really want James Bond just to stick around just because I want that tradition to also stick around. So, okay, we are all positive. That is good. If you haven't gone to go watch No Time to Die, first off, fuck you. Second, go watch all the Daniel Craig movies leading into that. Just fall asleep a little bit during Spectre, wake up around the end, you'll be fine, and then go watch this movie in theaters. You'll be happy for doing that. All good. Going from there, now we're going to transition to Bond history before we actually go into discussing the movie itself. AJ, when you were talking about the DVDs, for some reason in my mind, I immediately thought that it was like a newspaper thing that, in wait, I was about to say Britain, but wait, is that accurate? Where
Yeah,
again?
yeah, you can say that.
Oh,
That
okay,
I
perfect.
live in England, but England's part
Perfect.
of Britain, so
Dude, I don't. Okay, you know what? Yes, there. When you said the DVDs, I just imagined like it was a newspaper route where it was just like mandated that everyone had to have a copy of DVDs of every Bond movie. So moving on from that, besides the DVDs themselves, how was your history with Bond? Did you just kind of enjoy most of them? Did you have certain favorites? Take me through your history with this series.
okay. Yeah, also along with the DVDs there was this James Bond like magazine that I bought it when I was a child, but I never really read it. The reason I bought it was it came with these toy model, like this glass encased model of various cars from the Bond films.
Ooh,
So it was like I've got to get it to like I've got to get this month's issue of the magazine to get the car. So yeah, it's definitely, you've mentioned me being British a few times, and
you British?
it's like definitely ingrained in that culture of just like, oh, the James Bond magazine, and the DVDs, and just everything everywhere. But in terms of the films, yeah, I started watching them when I was younger. There's a lot of them that I haven't seen in years and years. There was one point in my life I was probably around, I don't know, like 10 to like 15 ish, like many years ago. I went back and made an effort to watch every single film, and I did. And then there's a few that I've only seen once, and some that I've seen more times. I definitely feel like I have a better memory of the more recent ones. I enjoy the films quite a bit. I think that as a series it's very inconsistent. There's like
Yeah.
it's probably like got like a 50% win rate in terms of, is this a good movie or a bad movie, is probably how I'd go for it. Although I do think that even when a lot of the bad ones are like bad and also quite campy, or they're bad and they have
Yeah.
like a good theme tune, or they're bad and they have like a really cool intro sequence, or they're bad and they have like a pretty good stunt somewhere. So
There's always
that
something redeemable.
even the bad ones are like worth getting through most of the time, because there's usually at least something that is noteworthy about it, instead of it just being like a complete slog that just sucks to get through. So I think even saying that, maybe the sort of half good half bad kind of downplays it a little, because you can still find joy in almost all of the films in some way. So I grew up with like Pierce Brosnan as like the main Bond for me. And
Mm.
so when Daniel Craig was announced, there was all like tabloid news cycle of like, oh, he's blonde and he's got blue eyes and that sucks or something, or like oh, he's going to be terrible. And then Casino Royale was like very different to, it's that like gritty, more grounded Bond. And
Mhm.
so I was sort of swept along with that, still being young, but I liked the film when I saw it in the cinema. And then, but it was going back to it that I like really, really appreciated it. And then, yeah, Quantum of Solace just sucks. And then Skyfall is fantastic, it's great. And then Spectre is just
Spectre.
horrible to watch. It's just so boring. It's really convoluted. It has like wacky twists that aren't even done in a wacky way that makes them interesting. It's kind of the worst of all worlds. And then No Time to Die kind of recovers a lot of those plot threads and ideas, that it sort of digs them out of a hole, which is perhaps the most impressive thing about the film, arguably, is the fact that they are able to tie everything up, tie everything together, bring back old characters and things like that I wouldn't have expected them to be able to pull off. You just sort of think like, oh well, I hope they at least have like a fun action movie, and that's kind of the minimum hope. But they did more than that, so I really appreciate that.
Literally the last piece that you said, the at least they give me something hopeful, to hold on to for not making that entire movie a waste of time. That was literally most of 1973 to like 89 for me with all these Bond movies I was watching this year.
Yeah, I think there's a trend in, I'd have to get a list of all of the films up, but I think there's a trend with Bond films of like when it's a new James Bond, the first few films in their run is usually better or highly or more concentrated with better films than towards the end of their run. Like Sean Connery's final few films are pretty bad,
Yeah.
and then Roger Moore's are as well. His worst is his last one, and then Pierce
Yeah, because he was
Brosnan.
like 65 when he did the last ones.
Yep, and then Pierce Brosnan, Die Another Day is his last one. Timothy Dalton and George Lazenby didn't really get like a run, like they don't really have like a beginning, middle, and an end. It's just sort of
Beginning.
all of that, yeah. And then Daniel Craig. It was pointed out to me the success rate of final films for Bond actors is usually pretty bad. So this is like definitely the best of those. And then I wanted to say as well, we said to go see No Time to Die, and I'm disappointed in Americans.
I'm pretty sure that you would want to stop that sentence right there, like no qualifiers or anything.
Yeah, somewhat frequently, but the so Venom is doing sort of 50% better than Venom 2 is doing 50% better than No Time to Die, it seems. Some of the box office figures, they seem to projected to get to about 60 million, and Venom got I think 80 or 90 million. So I mean that's just a terrible indictment of Americans, American culture, American cinema. I don't everything.
AJ, stop saying shit that makes me want to leave my country, okay? And Poot, tell me what is your Bond history? Is he dead? Poot, you there?
Hear me now?
There we go. Go ahead. Continue.
Okay.
Bond
I
history.
had to put myself on mute instead of potentially responding to that dreck we heard a moment ago.
You fuck. You made that funny. Now I'm not going to cut that out. Continue.
That's good. My history with Bond is my dad was really into movies. He showed me a variety of different types of movies, many of which I was way too young to be watching, but that's another story for another time. One of which was the Bond movies, primarily the Sean Connery ones, and also some of the Roger Moore ones. I grew up on like Dr. No and Goldfinger and some of the really more iconic ones, with the more iconic villains, with, like I said, Dr. No and Goldfinger and Tanaka and Oddjob. And so a lot of these really cheesy, almost kind of comic book really movies, if you kind of think
Pulp.
about it, with pulp, exactly, that's a better term for them.
Please, Venom was brought up earlier. We need to really tread lightly if we're going to use the word comic book.
All right, moving on. And then I watched some of the Pierce Brosnan ones, and those were also when a lot of the video games started being developed as well. Obviously GoldenEye was an iconic game. It came out as a licensed title, and I became more involved with the ecosystem, if you will, of Bond, of different content besides just the movies. And so I was more familiar with Pierce Brosnan, kind of like AJ said. I grew up on those being contemporary, and now with Craig, there's obviously different, and for the most part, it's really balanced a more serious tone with kind of the traditional pulp and cheese of Bond, and that works because Craig is an underrated comedic actor. He has really good timing.
Yep.
It's like, oh, he's an actually really good, well-rounded actor in pretty much whatever he's in. And so that's kind of my story, and I really appreciate this new arc overall. There was a couple of missteps, but when you do 5 movies, they're not all gonna necessarily be bangers from beginning to end. But I'm really happy, and I think moving forward, I've mentioned this a few times, I kind of hope they lean more into that kind of more 60s, 70s kind of classic cheese, if you will. Not all the way really goofy over the top like Austin Powers type, but something that's a little bit more cheese, a little bit more kind of Kingsman, if you will. Not that over the top, but not that over the top. But I'm just trying to do other movies for reference that have been released recently. But
a step closer there, but not full there.
Oh, absolutely. No, not full there. I mean, you don't want to be. Bond still has a reverence to it. especially with this Craig arc that really has elevated it above other movies that try to imitate it, like Kingsman or what have you. So, and you pointed to the opening song and the opening little rendition. I'm like, yeah, it feels like there's a tradition there.
Yes.
I would say there's really nothing been consistently quite like that, and there certainly is nothing like that now.
Hmm.
Kind of similar to the Star Wars opening number with the scrolling text.
Yes.
It's like, okay, we're getting something new, but there's also, it's kind of anchored in that those little bits of tradition, which is good to see, and it being in a cinema certainly helps a lot. So
I do love
yeah,
that now you made that connection to Star Wars. Star
yeah,
Wars and Bond have basically taken stuff that were generally used for their certain genres. Of course, the text that scroll through, and then the opening number. I do love that that was just a general tradition that because they kept being the last ones that used it, it is now just become a thing that they took over, which is fucking awesome.
yeah, exactly. I do hope we get more of them with those similar broad trappings. The opening bits, the Bond being the British kind of gentlemanly type, the cars, etc. But you can do different things with them, and over the decades we've seen what that has produced, mostly for good. Like I said, some missteps even within this one arc, but overall, yeah, very happy with where it went, and hopefully moving forward they can do something different while also keeping it Bond.
All right. Now, one thing I did want to say, because you did mention it about Craig being able to pull off comedic timing. You didn't say it, but I know you were thinking it. Logan Lucky. That is it. I will just say the name of the movie that you were thinking of while you said that. Logan Lucky. Dorian,
Yeah.
over here, tell me about your Bond history. How are you with Bond? Where do you stand?
Well, actually, I thought Bond just was Daniel Craig. I didn't know there were other movies before that, so I'm gonna have to
Ha,
do some
Zoomer.
research. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, no. I'm the fucking one of the oldest people here, so yeah.
Lies.
Pain. Bond is interesting for me. So basically, the earliest memories I have of Bond was my grandpa, who was a huge Bond fanatic. He loved those movies, and he would just sit me down and get me to watch them with him. And I remember watching. I think he was a big fan of Roger Moore, which actually made me like Roger Moore a lot too. So we'd watch a lot of the Bond movie, the Roger Moore ones. The first one I ever remember watching vividly is I think it was Moonraker. Actually, that's the one that kind of sticks in my head for whatever reason. But yeah, and then growing up, I definitely watched them all. I've seen them all now. Like AJ said, they're just very fluctuant in quality. You get some real bangers, and then you get some that are just for the most
Mhm.
part, though, even when they have that kind of cheese or charm to it that make it worth getting through the actual movie itself. So I do appreciate that about the series. And then, yeah, you get to the Pierce Brosnan era, which I'm going to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of. I think GoldenEye is a great movie, but the rest of them I can kind of live without. It kind of went a little bit too far in the other direction for me in a lot of those movies,
Hmm.
which is what made Daniel Craig's arc so intriguing to me. And now it's funny because I kind of want them to dial it back a bit. And I'm with Poot. I hope they kind of go back to that. Not necessarily cheese, but that kind of 60s kind of style where it's more, a little bit
Of
more
a wink and a
serious.
charm.
Wink and a charm to it with the seriousness mixed in. That's kind of what I'm hoping for too now. But no, they're great movies. And like everyone, I think everyone's touched on it. It's tradition, right? Like you get those awesome every time it's like, who's gonna do the Bond song this time? Like what are the credits gonna be like? Which no one's talked about, and I think it's actually pretty mixed. But I really like Billy Elliott's rendition for this movie. I think she did a
Eilish.
good job. I think it fit the movie very well. Obviously, it's not gonna top Skyfall, which is
Well,
just
yeah.
fucking iconic. But this one was very good, especially in the context of the movie, I thought. Although, and I still think they should have used Radioheads for Spectre, but that's another story. And yeah, I think the stuff like that is just really cool, and there's not enough of that in cinema. Like, there's not enough tradition like that. So the fact that James Bond is alive, it's very well, it's better than ever. Besides idiots, like who would actually? I want to go on a mini rant for a sec, but
Go for it.
who would be stupid enough to actually pay money and go see the new Venom in theaters? If anybody is that stupid, you're stupid. That's all I'm saying. Me, I did it, but let's not ignore that. Yeah. So hopefully more people go out and see James Bond. This one was very good. And if you haven't seen them, this is a great chance to actually, kind of start dipping your toes in the library. Start with the Craig arc if you want, get your way to No Time to Die, and then go back and experience some of the classics because there's a lot of really good movies there.
God, I'm happy that all of this is just going to be telling people over and over again, please don't watch Venom. Please watch more Bond. Okay, I'm going to go ahead into a different direction now just because I feel like it's necessary since we're already discussing Bond. Oh, wait, crap. I didn't even answer my history. All of you had, well, okay, AJ had an entire country telling him he had to watch it. Addie and Poot, both you guys had at least some older family member to go tell you to watch them. I had no one. I just remember looking and going, oh, cool. there's guns, there's hot women. I should probably watch this. Keep in mind, I think I was like 5 or something. I just really have liked movies this long. The funniest thing is that I think the closest thing that I remember, the earliest touchdowns that I have for Bond, are easily the GoldenEye N64 game and renting Die Another Day on DVD from Blockbuster. We weren't exactly eating that well. From there, the Craig movies, I don't think I watched Casino Royale till like 2010 or something. And then I think I remember the first time I watched Skyfall, I didn't even like it. So my history with Bond is just very weird. I don't think I've watched any of the Bond movies before Die Another Day till like right now when I told myself this year I'm going to watch all of them. I always knew I liked them enough, at least Casino Royale, but I just never delved into it. At some point, I want to say like in 2015 or so, I finally decided to go back and watch Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, and then Skyfall. And then I was like, you know what? I actually like these. These are good. And then I just never dug back around until, this year when I told myself to go watch them. I enjoy these, even the bad ones. I still enjoyed because there was still some of that charm of the fact that they're so old that you're just like, oh man, look, they're trying. This was them trying. I still enjoyed this regardless. Although I will probably say something that's controversial to people. I don't like George Lazenby at all. As soon as that's the only movie that I started skipping through because just something about that man did not click to me as Bond that I just went, no, I don't think I can do this. So that's one direction with the history. The other direction that I wanted to go before I hadn't even explained my history was that what is favorite Bond and what is your favorite tradition? So I'm going to list off some of the traditions that I feel like are necessary there to be part of a Bond film. If you want to add more, go ahead. If you feel like some of these are wrong, be contentious. So I want to say the opening action scene, the opening number, uh, of course, Shaken Not Stirred, of course, Bond, James Bond. There's a couple of more, but I want to say, oh, sorry, always getting attacked in a hotel room. I feel like I always have to add that one because it's comedic how often that happens. My favorite Bond, not including Daniel Craig, because I feel like Daniel Craig is too easy of a choice. My favorite one is probably Timothy Dalton, and I want to say that my favorite trope or thing that needs to be in a Bond film is probably going to be the opening number. Poot, tell me, who is your favorite Bond? What is your favorite trope? What are some tropes that you feel like I may have missed as well that are important enough to be mentioned?
Favorite Bond overall is probably Sean Connery. I would say overall, just due to his filmography. I may lean towards Craig eventually when it more time and years away from him. But my favorite trope in Bond, I don't think you mentioned this, is actually when there's a really kind of funny, elaborate kill followed up by a one-liner.
Oh, how dare I forget the
Those
one-liner?
Yeah, well, cause I was thinking about the one-liner first. I'm like, no, that's always a follow-up to a really funny kill. Like there was one near the end of this one. I don't want to go into spoilers this early, but yeah, it was really funny. It got a laugh out of people as it rightly should have because it was funny. But yeah, I think that's my favorite. I was probably second is probably the opening bit just before the song kicks in. So it's kind of like a good opening crescendo, if you will. But yeah,
Wait,
definitely the funny kill followed by the quip. So
do you mean the opening action scene or the musical number?
I kind of do them as six of one, half a dozen of the other, because I don't know, they're almost intertwined for me.
Hmm.
Because I don't think you can have a really boring opening number followed up by a big kind of sweeping opening credit sequence. I don't know, but that's just me. So, but yeah, it's definitely the funny kill followed up by the quip. And I think that's a hallmark because like Sean Connery was good at it, Roger Moore was good at it, and obviously Daniel Craig is excellent at it. So that's definitely my favorite.
All right, Addy, tell me favorite Bond, favorite trope.
So Roger Moore is my favorite Bond, and a lot of that is probably
Ooh,
just
respect.
bias from the years and how I watched them. Objectively, he's probably not the best, but he's my favorite, so that's just the way it is.
No, that's a base choice, okay?
And so yeah, love me some Roger Moore. As for trope, I'm gonna go very tropish with it and just agree and say that for me, it's the opening credits, and those are just such a big deal to me. They're just so iconic. Again, just knowing who the Bond song is gonna be, who's doing it, what they like, what kind of cool visuals they throw in there, and I'm always waiting because you're kind of watching that opening action sequence or whatever's going on with it. And you're like, okay, it's coming, it's coming soon, it's coming soon, and then you're kind of just like, I always like have like a little meta game inside my head where I'm like, okay, where are they going to put the intro scene? Is it going to be here? Is it going to be here? And then Yeah, so that's definitely my favorite tradition in terms of that stuff. I mean, they're all good though. Like I think you guys have mentioned most of them that I can think of. I always wait for the shaken not stirred line, and I always get a good laugh out of it in the theaters because it's coming at some point. It's great, and the whole "What's your name?" Bond, James Bond. You're waiting for that every movie because it's coming. So just cool little traditions that make it fun.
So, any other tradition or trope that I may have missed that you just want to throw out there that, we just forgot?
Not that I can think of, to be honest with you. I'm sure there's something. AJ is going to come in here next and just be like, "You guys forgot this," with his like thesaurus of British James Bond knowledge. So toss it to
It's
him
in
because he's going to know.
Yeah, exactly. It's in his blood. AJ, tell us why we Americans do not understand Bond.
I do have three that I don't think were mentioned in terms of traditions. I was going to say gadgets as one.
Oh, yes.
Especially in the earlier films, pre Craig, you'd get just absolutely crazy, just wacky gadgets that are never practical except for this like one very specific
Every single
unforeseeable
time.
scenario that comes up, and then they're completely perfect. So I quite like those, and I don't think anyone mentioned it. And then
Dude,
I
Q
guess,
Branch has clairvoyance. That's what it is. They just know that, you know what? Bond's going to need a fucking magnet, okay?
yeah. And then I guess Bond girls as well is a tradition, just having like almost like a kind of in like the noir sense of like femme fatale in some
Yep.
cases, and then also just eye candy like sex object stuff in the earlier
Mhm.
films especially.
Accurate.
And then the other, I guess, tradition that wasn't really brought up was the vehicles, the car chases, that sort of thing. There's a lot of prestige in terms of making these like unique, especially with Aston Martin, but you've
Mhm.
seen it with BMW and other manufacturers as well. But in terms of like this bespoke or new car that has gadgets built in, for the film, and they have like a way to show off these like beautiful sports cars and supercars and stuff. So I'd say those are three traditions that I think weren't mentioned. In
Correct.
terms of my favorite Bond, I'd probably say Timothy Dalton as well. I
Ooh.
think it's tough because his run was like cut short. I'm not sure entirely the full context around that. I know that License to Kill, like people were quite mixed on it because of how like dark and serious it was, and people were kind of against that. So, and I
It-
think that GoldenEye was originally written for Timothy Dalton or something, or it was planned to be his film. So I kind of feel like part of it is maybe a bias of like we never got the full run from him, and I think he's a really great actor. I love him in Hot Fuzz as well. He's amazing in that
Oh,
film.
yeah, that was him.
So I think for him, he's probably my favorite. I'm not sure though. I mean, I like all of them for different reasons. I think I'd say like it's easy to underestimate or underappreciate Sean Connery, I guess, because he had to put the whole thing on his back, to start off with, kickstart everything, and plays that like archetype that the others play off of and sort of build around. So I think it's easy to sort of overlook that. And I like Daniel Craig. I don't know. I understand the arguments for him being the best, but I don't feel that way. I kind of feel about like Pierce Brosnan, that I liked him as Bond, but I agree, Addy mentioned earlier that his films weren't the best. Like there's Goldeneye and then there's the rest. The next two are okay, and then Die Another Day is terrible. So, I kind of feel like he kind of didn't get a chance either. But yeah, I think for me it's probably Timothy Dalton. In terms of my favorite tradition, I really like the intro sequences, not like the credits sequences or the song, although I do love both of those. But if we're, just choosing one thing, I
Mhm.
think the like pre-credits like scene, I think that
Ooh.
that is the thing I look forward to the most, perhaps, because I like how you could almost make that they're sort of like vignettes that occasionally, sometimes, like in No Time to Die, obviously what happens in the intro like is really impactful and important for the rest of the film, but sometimes you get like these intro sequences where it's like almost like a short film that sort of stands on its own as like this mini like action film of like him Bond like escaping from somewhere or infiltrating somewhere, and it just has this whole like small self-contained arc that you never know what you're going to get with it, but things are going to like kick off, like things are going to get interesting. The pacing's going to ramp up quite quickly, quite early into the film, whereas a lot of like we talked about how sort of unique and but also traditional sort of within its own franchise in terms of Bond. And that's another thing that I love about the series, is that there's not this like slow ramping up of the pacing. There's like spikes in the pacing in terms of when the action scenes come in, and the intro always has to have like its own self-contained arc, which I really appreciate. So that's probably what I look forward to and enjoy the most.
Now, just because you had to mention opening and you mentioned Timothy Dalton, I still think that my favorite opening is probably License to Kill, where they take on Colombian drug dealers and then jump out of a helicopter and land exactly where the church is for Felix Leiter to get married. I love that one so much, so I think I might be right there with you. And that might be why I like Timothy Dalton the most.
You can like totally go back and look up on YouTube or whatever, just like look up like every intro sequence and it'll give you like a good idea of like the tone of the whole film and then also remind you of everything about the film. You can go through and just like, oh, cut out this like 10-15 minute sequence or however long, sequences and just watch them, and like you've got a whole idea of the film and everything it's trying to do. And I think that's really great. I really love that.
Beautiful. All right. I think we've given enough time to talk about No Time to Die, history about Bond. I think now it's time to go into spoilers, talk about the entire reason we even came here, which was No Time to Die. So, for anyone who is still not been convinced to go watch Bond, first off, fuck you. What's wrong with you? Go watch them, please. No matter how you have to do it, I don't care. Just watch these movies. From here, we're going to go into spoilers. So, I'm going to go 3, 2, 1. Are you still listening here for spoilers? You're a fucking idiot, okay? Well, you're dumb, and I'm going to ruin your day and tell you that Bond is dead, okay? Bond had a daughter. He's dead, and you're stupid for listening to this. I'm not fucking around, okay? You screwed up. You ruined this movie for yourself. Good job, everyone. Okay, I love this movie. AJ, I'm tossing it back to you. No Time to Die. What exactly is one piece of, I guess, spoiler shit that you want to go and discuss?
It's difficult. Are we? So I can see you're giving me control over some level of structure here. We're not going through in chronological order necessarily.
That's a problem. Most of these conversations, whenever you discuss a movie, I could go chronological. I tried that for Whiplash, and I felt like that was too structured. So,
Okay.
honestly, this at this point is let's just discuss this movie. Like this is the drive home. You just walked out of the theater. You're sitting in a car, and we're now discussing this movie as we go drop each other off, like at where we live.
Okay. I really liked how they tied up a lot of the loose ends and gave Daniel Craig's Bond closure in terms of in the opening with Vesper, of course, the tomb and the grave, and then I think with the other loose ends as well. I mean, it's annoying that like Spectre really messed up Blofeld in terms of there's so much wasted potential there, and I felt like I could still feel it in this film because Christoph Waltz, I think he's a great actor and he could be great
Yep.
for the character, and he's just like totally wasted, and the whole half brother thing is just stupid and nonsense, and I'm glad they sort of get away from that in this film for the most part. They like give like one passing reference to it, but they're like, we're not going to go down that road that much. And so I think that character, he has an okay scene in this film, although it's maybe where it drags the most. There's an annoying thing, it's dramatic irony, and when you have that in a film, the audience is like, it's intentional that there's a frustration, because there's stuff where between like Madeline and like Blofeld and Bond, it's like they all have like information that each other needs, and there's like not like proper communication, and in some cases that's intentional, and in some cases you just talk to each other, for God's sake, what are you doing? And I found that sort of interrogation scene a bit frustrating, but mostly in a good way, I guess, but also in a bad way, because I'm reminded of Blofeld, the greatest or like most significant recurring villain in Bond, and it sort of his death, like very unceremonious death, and just his whole arc in the Craig films. It's like it might be the worst in terms of how people will like look back and they'll be like, oh, let's like look back at like Blofeld in the Bond film. Like in terms of the Craig films, it's like it's so weak, and it's such a miss. It's such a fail that I always think about it. Just like, why did you?
There's so much wasted potential, is what I would say, especially with Blofeld. Like there was so much potential there. I mean, his name is fucking Blofeld. It's a perfect
Blofeld, not Field, Blofeld. Yeah,
Blofeld. Excuse me. It's the perfect villain, and you kind of fucked it up.
Yeah, and they had great casting for him, and then he's just in Craig's films. There's definitely a lot of darkness and sadness and irony for the audience and for the characters. In terms of, I was rewatching Skyfall, and there's a whole thing where like towards the start of the film, the new M is going to replace Judi Dench's M, and he's telling her like, you can step down and retire and stop chasing this, and also Bond's not ready to be back in the field, and obviously M's involvement essentially leads to her own death by the end of that film. You could almost imagine an alternate timeline where she's just like, yeah, you're right, and then like steps away or something. Of course, you can't tell that would happen because, you know, the antagonist of that film is like driven to murder her. But I think there is this sadness and how the villains almost get what they want, like they almost win as well. And that again in Skyfall kind of happens. And then in this film it kind of happens as well, right? Because, you know,
Yeah.
Blofeld's conversation with Bond, it's like, you know, he's almost like laughing at him, like, oh, I took everything away from you. And then Lucifer Satan, Rami Malek man, is also similarly sort of like in the end when he smashes the nanobots in Bond's face, and he's won at that point, really. I mean, he's lost as well, but he's also won. And that's something that stuck with me, is that through all of the Craig films there's this darkness and like this cursed fate type deal going on, and then also the villains kind of get what they want. You know, they have to sacrifice everything to get it, but they kind of win in some interpretations of it. And the films kind of gloss over that in a way, like they show it but they're sort of like also yay, like it's weirdly bittersweet, I suppose, is the way to put it, perhaps.
I still think that it's fucking hilarious that they couldn't use Blofeld at all for like 3 decades, to the fact that they even kill Blofeld by just a lookalike in, I don't even remember, I think it was like one of the Roger Moore movies.
Yeah, they drop him down like a big smokestack or
Exactly, and they never show his face. It's just like bald guy from behind, and it's fucking comedic to me that 3 decades of not being able to use his fucking Joker, and you come back and you give a Spectre and then kill him off so quickly in No Time to Die. I
Yeah.
still can't get over that.
It really shows to me that they, like, after Spectre, they're like, we fucked this up, and like now instead of ruining the next film as well, we're just gonna give him like 2 scenes, he's gonna be
Yeah.
locked up, and we're just gonna get rid of it and just like forget about it. Like we messed it up. We'll do another reboot and then we'll maybe fix it then. So
It was very much a cut or losses type moment.
Yeah, you're talking about Blofeld. I think that was one of the kind of the weaknesses of the movie, is that there was so much movie in it to where, because of, they felt like they had to wrap up literally every single thing. Like we got Felix Leiter got killed off, and he had the little closure with that. And okay, I need to say this too, because I was thinking about this kind of near the end of the movie. This is also Blade Runner 2049 spoilers. AJ, have you seen that movie?
yes, yep.
Okay,
Okay,
so
we're all
we're
good here.
gonna do a countdown. 3, 2.
No, how
1.
about look, Poot, just do this.
What?
Give it, if you can cut it in like 10 seconds, so then someone can just like skip once and then move over. Do that.
Okay, really quickly, for 10 seconds or so, I thought they were going to do a Rachel from Blade Runner 2049 with Vesper. I thought they were going to bring her back somehow at the very
Jesus
end.
Christ, no.
Yeah,
God,
I
no.
know. But anyway, okay, moving
That
on.
is 10 seconds.
Moving on. Okay, good.
It's like a Marvel movie or something.
Yeah, exactly. Especially that opening part of that opening bit. I'm like, oh god, they're going to do that, aren't they? But no, they didn't. Part of me was, that's why I felt like it was too long. It felt like they were too concerned with wrapping up every little strand here and there throughout the arc. But I also understood that this movie was really about closure for Daniel Craig's portrayal of the character and everything that he's gone through through all of the movies. So I definitely respected and appreciated that, because it was really the filmmakers telling the audience that, hey, we cared about this character, and also Daniel Craig saying that as well. Hey, we cared about this character. We wanted to give him a proper closing as well. And I guess really quickly, my other immediate thought was Rami Malek was good in it, but his character, the way he was inserted, definitely felt shoehorned. It was like, okay, we need to throw something in here that is kind of a catalyst to wrap everything up, and how it bounces off all of the characters within the history of Daniel Craig's arc of these movies. So
He feels very good in the role. He feels like he knows that he's not supposed to be like the main antagonist. Like the main antagonist is, I guess, supposed to be time more than anything else. So
yeah,
like he knows he just has to be there to, like you said, he needs to be the catalyst. But I also still feel like he's really underutilized, and I don't feel like I could fix that issue, because that's kind of the nature of the movie. The nature of the movie is to send Craig off on his way.
Yeah.
I actually I really enjoyed Rami in the movie. I thought, like, when like first of all, the guy was born to play a Bond villain, like
Yes.
like
Yeah.
literally born. Like you could not have typecast a better guy, and you could have definitely done a little bit more with the role. There was definitely some room to expand, but like I mean, as AJ was saying earlier, like going back to him, like he got what he wanted at the end, right? Like he really did. He fucking like he couldn't have her, so now Bond couldn't, and he kind of gets that final stab in on her. And I have to say, the very start of the movie, I did not expect a jump scare in a Bond film, but Jesus Christ, that got me good
Yeah.
with that
Yeah.
stupid fucking mask.
That entire opening sequence
It's
was
done very well.
so well done.
Yeah,
That little bit with the not the foggy door, but the kind of like privacy door when he's walking up towards it. I don't know if you guys remember that shot
yeah,
with the mask
Yeah.
on, just really, really well. Yeah, that entire sequence was just a feast, and you can tell that the director Fukunaga was just him with his directorial
Oh, yeah.
prowess on full display, without a doubt.
Yeah,
But
I
Sure.
need to mention it. The cinematographer was the guy who also did First Man and La La Land. So when I heard that shit, I was like, oh, yes, we got a man who is cinema. Continue.
yeah,
we didn't mention it, but I'm surprised this film came out as well as it did
Yep.
because it had like a lot of production and writing issues, and that's like even with ignoring COVID and all of that stuff, because
Yeah.
it was initially going to be directed and scripted by Danny Boyle.
Yeah.
And
One
then
thing to mention, the fact that
which would be fascinating.
so
Yeah.
most movies tend to be about $200 million in budget, and they only go above that unless, unless you're like really high end budget like that, or most of the time it's mistakes in production. This one had a budget of 250 to 300 million. So that's something that that they had a lot of trouble trying to get this done.
Yeah, they were going to write and direct it, and there was some drama about it actually because it was apparently it was rumored that Eon and Barbara Broccoli and all of those, they wanted to kill, and Daniel Craig especially wanted to kill off Bond, and apparently that was why it was like rumored back then that was why Danny Boyle left the project, because he was like, I don't want to do that. Like that's not how my version of this film will end. I still don't know if that's true, of course.
What the
but
hell would
it
that
could
movie
be.
have looked like?
But
How the hell do you not kill Bond after Spectre?
well, yeah, I guess he was going to work with a screenwriter. I don't remember his name, but he works with, like, he's got like a screenwriter that he writes his films with like all the time, basically.
Oh.
Like a director screenwriter partnering, and they were going to write the film and he was going to direct the film. And so I'm pretty sure after like Spectre blew up in their faces, they were kind of like, "Hey, you take Bond and like do what you want with like this final outing for the most part, but like here's the bullet points you've got to hit. Like you've got to kill Bond, you got to do this, you got to do that, like type stuff." Or
They
Yeah, and I
handed
think
they handed him a bomb that was labeled Spectre.
yeah.
yeah,
So then they left the project, and then the guy who, there's like a screenwriting duo that wrote Spectre and wrote Quantum of Solace and wrote Skyfall and wrote Casino Royale and pretty much tons of Bond films. They got on board and they wrote this film, but then they also got Phoebe Waller-Bridge, I think her name is.
Correct.
She wrote, I think she wrote Fleabag, which is like a BBC drama, and some other stuff. Yeah, so they got her in as well, and then she started writing some of the scripts and some of the screenplay, and then it got, so it's like you've had so many writers going around this project, which is usually a pretty bad sign.
Yep.
Maybe this will be completely wrong, but you look at like the Uncharted movie, and it's like they're on like their 7th director or something, and it's like what are you doing? So when you see that stuff, you're like, this is going to be a disaster. So a lot of that happened with this film, and it feels overstuffed, while also it kind of feels like there's some like transitional scenes that were taken out, like they were like really trying in the editing room to like get a decent pace, and I think it mostly succeeded, and it's sort of shocking how successful the film is, like given all of those problems and everything they needed to do to get this thing working. And I think it does work, and I think that's like an extra impressive feature about it.
yeah, I would agree with that. And to go back to your point, I think this was the only way that Daniel Craig was going to come back, was to kill him off, kind of like Harrison Ford with Force Awakens, because I want to say maybe after Spectre or maybe before Spectre, maybe one or two times between movies, he's like, I'm done with this fucking shit. I don't want to do it anymore. And he was like really publicly blunt about it. He's like, I'm
Yep.
legitimately sick of doing these movies. And it was kind of discouraging because people had become really huge fans. And I remember, to go back to a really earlier point, I think AJ mentioned it, he was
Mm.
kind of unpopular. There was, I think on the tabloids, they called him James Blonde
Yep.
because he was kind of blonde. He came in, he was announced in this really elaborate, like he came in on a motorboat for the announcement. It was really elaborate and over the top. So yeah, I think this was the only way that it was going to end. That was the only way they were going to bring him back. And I was thinking, how like brutal would it have been if the ending was that he was still alive, but he literally wasn't able to touch his beloved wife and child again. I think that's almost too cruel of an ending as compared to just killing him off, where he's at peace and he's able to really save people that he loves, that he finally loves and cares about and puts before himself.
I'm going to throw a spanner into the works and say that I'm not 100% convinced that he's dead, but I'm interested in what they, for all intents and purposes, he's
this
dead.
is where Daniel Craig would come in and say, "Fuck off, I'm dead, I'm done."
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, the problem.
No, he means
I
that
guess,
Daniel Craig is dead, but James Bond is still alive.
yeah, I mean, I guess I heard, where did I hear it? I heard it somewhere else that they said maybe he can make like a little cheeky cameo in one of the films as like maybe like a butler or something.
Oh no,
It's kind
I
of a
don't
wink
think.
and a nod.
No,
but
I don't think Daniel Craig is gonna like show up again. I just mean as in like I'm interested in how in the next film if they are like if they're going to go like full reboot or if they're going to be like
if they're
this
going
is
to
the same
acknowledge some
guy.
continuity, I get you.
Right, because first of all, with Bond, like he survives absolutely ludicrous, impossible situations that I'm already on the point of where I'm like, I need to see like a mutilated corpse. And also there can't be like I don't want there to be a cut between like when the death happens and the mutilated corpse as well. I need to see it in one continuous shot because otherwise it's like it's a fake body and like he's actually like there's also as well I looked it up and towards the end of the film after the rockets and all of that, M has like a eulogy for Bond. He's like talking to Moneypenny and everyone, and I looked up the quote and it's from someone called Jack London, and he wrote in the San Francisco Bulletin in 1916. But the more interesting thing about it is it's a quote from Ian Fleming's "You Only Live Twice," the book, and it's used in an obituary in like the newspapers for Bond when the world thinks he's dead, but he's not actually dead. So it's like why would
You're
you
going full never be game over.
yeah,
Yeah.
why would you use that as the but I think that he probably is, but also it's so stupid to even like debate it. In the credits it says, James Bond will return, and it's like and the whole chronology and reboots and like it's not the same guy, it is the same, like all of that is kind of stupid anyway. Like it kind of doesn't matter. Although it does make me think like, is there going to be a point where that like lessens the impact of the ending in
I
that
just
way?
think that it's gonna be a difference between the meta and the literal. Like, literally, Bond is dead. But I think the things that you're pointing out are a bit more of meta to just kind of let the audience know, like, yeah, this Bond is dead, but like, don't worry, we're still gonna come back. Because at least for me, it always felt like Bond just really never cared about canon until now. So I wouldn't be shocked if, like, in the next movie, they were like, well, Ben Whishaw, I mean, he was for the Tumblr crowd, so like, let's get a new Q. Naomi Harris, you're a good money penny, you can stay. Voldemort as M, you can stay. We're gonna bring in a new Bond, and sorry, Lea Sado, you are out now because you are previously the last Bond. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if they still brought back the players that they liked, and then just went, yeah, we're just starting from here now. Don't question anything.
If they do that, it would still be a bit weird if it's like the same actor for M and it's like meant to be the same M and he's like, hi Bond. They just like have a total reset. It would just feel a bit unusual.
Doing it that way would have been for like if Daniel Craig had died in real life, right? So that would be kind of awkward. I mean, I would go with it, right? It's Bond.
Yeah.
If you started with a new Bond, do a whole new arc, etc. I mean, I can hear Hideo Kojima crying, saying you're getting rid of Lea Seydoux for the series, but
well,
yeah,
I think she's definitely gone because I think
she's gone, and her character deserves to. Like she's free now, right? She has a daughter.
There'd be no point to bring her back.
It goes back to what I said. There's enough sincerity and love in this movie to where I don't think that they would do a lot of these types of things, right? Where they're like, oh, Bond's not actually, like Daniel Craig's Bond that isn't actually dead, you guys, and stuff like that. But
I mean, this is what Bond's always done this though. Like, it's always decided to reset the continuity after they're done.
Yeah, exactly.
So this doesn't come as a surprise to me. They usually do bring back some of the key players. I mean, it'll feel a little bit weird since the Daniel Craig direction has veered off so in the other direction. But I mean, it'll take one movie and I'll be back in.
I mean, it's good. It works in both ways to look at the ending in the sense that it keeps, if somehow if somehow you were like, oh, it's all one character, like all the films are one character, because if you were to believe that, then he literally can't die and then come back again because it's one guy, right? So if you did take that interpretation, I suppose you could say like that his death is like convincing to Madeline, and it like makes sure she just like stays away forever. She's never going to look for him again. He's like gone. And it works in that sense, right? So there's basically no way she could come back conceivably. But also, I was thinking as well, and it was something I hadn't considered, but it totally makes sense for his character to die as well, because like there's that whole thing about like the nanobots can get transferred by like skin contact or whatever. So it's like if he stays alive, it's not just him getting into contact with her that he has to worry about. It's like someone can get into contact with him and then get into contact with her.
Yeah.
You
and
literally have
kill
to live in
them, right?
isolation.
So
That's why I said like him staying alive in the continuity is, I think, even a more cruel fate
Yep.
than him dying. Honestly, like I said, it goes back to, I think, the sincere love that they have for this character and its arc. That I don't think they would do that, but
Well,
who knows? It's movies.
I would just say this: if they actually did that, and somehow I'm saying Daniel Craig's Bond, because we know Bond's alive, the spirit of Bond's alive. But if
Yeah.
Daniel Craig's Bond was still alive, that would honestly ruin the ending of that movie for me. Like,
Yeah,
flat
I
out.
wouldn't go that far, but I think ultimately it kind of would. It would definitely. I think Edwin said it earlier. It would lessen or cheapen that ending.
Would cheapen it
to
for
be
sure.
honest with you, yeah, because like you saw the
I
explosion.
think it was AJ. I can't take credit.
Yeah, you saw the explosion. You saw him like right there. You saw the flat line on the monitor for Q, up in Q's plane, and they had the eulogy and all that stuff. But
Like, he's dead. I mean, the fact that Spectre has the smart blood again, and they literally make it a plot point that he can't take it out, and they
Exactly.
need to have Q lie
Yeah.
over and over and over again. Like, that smart blood is like, no, that's as close as we're getting to a corpse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like unless he lives in isolation for the rest of his life, he would spread it to somebody else. There's no way he can't guarantee that, or one of his enemies would fucking make sure to come in contact with him to kill his wife, right? Like he has to completely live in a bubble, or else it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, but I mean,
AJ.
I guess the problem I have is that I think no matter what happens, the ending is weakened somewhat by the fact that there's going to be another film with the same character. I don't think there's any risk of there ever being like an explicit, oh, this is the Daniel Craig Bond again. Like, I don't think they do that, because why would you do that? That's so unnecessary. But I think that it's not a different person, it's like the same character in terms of like James Bond himself coming back. But I think that they will probably do a big reset. I like the ending as well because of how it gives the writers complete freedom to do like anything next, like literally anything. They can like get rid of everything. They could go to the past, they could go to the future, they could do modern day. They have like complete free reign to do absolutely anything. So I think that's really exciting about the ending. But I guess I do think that if they do retain some of the old characters, it is going to feel weird. And it would be especially weird if you imagine it'll work quite well for us, because it'll probably be 5 or 6 years since like until like the next Bond film, perhaps. So that will work quite well. But I feel like if you like if you go and like binge them and watch them back to back, you're just like, oh, okay, well, that was No Time to Die and he's dead, and now here's the next one where he's he's back. It's just like there's going to be some weirdness intrinsically, unless they just ended the franchise, I guess.
I have a question. Do you think that, I guess, the finality of The Dark Knight Rises is going to be worse because of Robert Pattinson's The Batman? Or is that a different situation?
No, because that's a good point, though. I think that has me leaning towards them actually doing a whole new continuity with all new cast, because I think that'll help general audiences differentiate more. I don't think it will when you bring up the Batman example. I think it'll be fine, and there's precedent for that, right? And as there is with Bond, with they're restarting a continuity, the same broad character, the same similar trappings like Batman and with Bond, that I think most audiences are going to be cool with a new start over with how this one ended. Most people will generally understand, okay, this is the end of this arc, if you will. They're going to pick up a new one as they have in previous iterations. So I don't think it will at all, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know. I mean, I think that comic book characters operate under different rules and expectations from audiences, just generally. When you look at, I'm sure it applies to DC as well, but when you look at like a Marvel character and it's like Earth 616 or whatever, it's like they've got like a tag next to them of like, they're from this continuity. This article is based on like this continuity of the character. It's not as differentiated in this series that it is different people, and because I think the problem is that because all of the Bond films are like modern when they take place, that it does feel like one continuity in that sense to an audience, because it's like a constant character that's like progressing through time in the same way the audience is progressing through time, if that makes sense. Like, that's maybe a weird way to conceptualize it. I think that the way they did this ending, you bring up The Dark Knight Rises, I guess, spoilers for The Dark Knight
Oh,
Rises.
come on! If anyone's listened to this and not watched Batman, what's wrong with you? Continue. Spoil it all. We're not even doing countdowns for that.
I think
Joseph
that
Gordon-Levitt is Robin.
I think that
No.
the way
Mm.
I mean, the way this film handles it is better than The Dark Knight Rises. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, of
if
course.
there was like
Yes.
a cafe thing, that would be hilarious, like, and terrible. So
Just Craig sitting at the fucking cafe with his wife winking towards M.
It's a high chair that they had the little girl in.
I love it.
yeah,
I
so
love it.
I don't have a problem with the ending. I'm just interested in how they approach it. It's unprecedented in terms of what they're doing, and I think
Yeah.
that it was a lot to take in when I saw it, definitely. But I think that it's something that clearly, if I had to guess, like, the behind the scenes stuff, I think it's clearly something that Daniel Craig probably pushed for. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, I want this to be like my
For sure.
character and my
Yeah.
arc, and like I don't want there to be a thing where whoever the next guy is like leeching off of that, could mess up my story or whatever. And also the fact that he doesn't want to go back to it again, and he doesn't want to be convinced to go back to it again. So he's like, do this, nail in the coffin type stuff. I can't do another one now. There's like no way I can do another one. You have to at least sort of very softly reboot the character to some extent.
We've said it before, but there's no way he's coming back to do that movie if he doesn't get that demand. I think that was a big part of it, and I think the fact that Spectre was such a flop, I think he wanted to end it on a better note too. So I think those two things were driving forces for him to come back and say, okay, let's correct this ship. But if I'm correcting this ship, we're going to do it my way, and I'm fucking piecing the fuck out. You're blowing me to fucking hell.
I love the idea that the producers come back to Daniel Craig one day and it's like, okay, hey, listen, you know how in Quantum of Solace happens 5 minutes after Casino Royale, and then we go to Skyfall and you are already an old man? What if we put a movie in between? And then Daniel Craig shoots the producer and he's like, fuck off.
Yeah, I to go back to what AJ said a moment ago, I think part of me is still processing that, right? Having watched a number of Bond films, it was like, wow, we just witnessed what I'm like 99% sure is a definitive ending for a 5-movie arc for James Bond, which I think is really unprecedented for this character in these types of movies. So part of me is still processing that after watching it for the first time. So, I may interpret it, I may absorb it differently upon a second viewing or repeat viewings. But yeah, I think another aspect is, what do they do with Lashana Lynch's 007, right? Like, are they just gonna? Because I mean, if you're doing a whole new continuity, she kind of really can't be in it because she's a tether from the previous continuity. So I think there would be some controversy around that. It's like, well, okay, you're bringing in a woman Bond who is also a black woman, and then you're just tossing her aside after one movie. So I am glad I don't have to make those difficult creative decisions, but also at the same time, if you start a whole new continuity, that's exciting, right? For all new creatives, you can lure in even more talent, screenwriting talent, directing talent, acting talent, to say, hey, you guys have more creative freedom to start a whole new maybe do a one-off movie, or maybe do 2 or 3 if you wanted to. That's genuinely exciting for me, and I think that's what a lot of really hardcore fans would want, is to really start over with a new thing that feels fresh.
Yeah, I think that's the direction they'll go.
Yeah,
I think so.
I think that there's nothing, to back this up. There's no studies or anything. But in terms of, I think audiences generally, in terms of Bond films, they sort of believe that there is like a very, very loose continuity between the Bonds, is the perception that I have of the way audiences interpret the story. And then I think the difference with Craig's films is I think there's more intent from the producers that Craig's films are like a self-contained bubble that have a beginning and an end, and that's its own thing that's sort of away from everything else. And then so I think that the next one will sort of slot in, but just like take Craig's out and just like have it as like a thing on its own, and then whoever the next one is probably might slot into either their own batch of their own thing. But I think prior to Craig, it seemed to me that people were sort of like, it's not really the same guy, but it's kind of the same guy. There were some plot threads that had continuity between films, but it was usually each film was like its own adventure, and it was only with Craig's films that they were connected so strongly.
Mhm.
So I think that, yeah, I really hope that they can go back to doing like independent, more risky films in terms of without having to sort of tie them all together.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good idea. You said about having directors on, you have Quentin Tarantino's James Bond, Christopher Nolan's James
This time
Bond.
he says the N word.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm thinking back to it, right? Casino Royale, a vast majority of that movie, he wasn't even a designated 00, right? He was still.
No, he was a 00 for the entire movie. It's just that at the very beginning, that's him getting 00 status.
That's what it was. Okay, I was trying to remember what the cutoff was. Okay, we got him being just before he became a 00 all to his entire arc. So yeah, I think that reinforces even more that broadly how well they handled this arc that, like I said, was unprecedented for this character in these movies.
I guess the way we'll know the actual sort of direction in terms of the lore is, I guess, if whoever the next Bond is, if at the start MI6 think he's dead or like think he doesn't exist. I guess if that happens, even if there's some small throwaway thing about it, this is meant to be definitely the same guy, even though it's not connected. I guess that's how they would square if they wanted to go that route with the character, but it's going to be crazy whatever they do and really cool to see.
I did make a joke about it earlier about Quantum of Solace going to Skyfall. So at least from the stupid timeline that I was following to watch all these movies, I mean, it is kind of weird the fact that you go from Casino Royale, him just getting 00 status, Quantum of Solace picks up like literally minutes after, and then you get to Skyfall and everyone's like, oh man, Bond, you've been in this work for too long. I don't know how you've been doing all this. That's kind of why I think that huge jump between like early Bond to, oh, you're a veteran now, that's why I don't think I had that much of a problem where if they brought in either a new continuity or brought back old pieces, because they imply such a huge gap in time between becoming 00 to becoming the actual Bond that he is in Skyfall, that no matter what they do, I feel like in my mind I could always just be like, well, there was probably a huge gap in there. It always feels kind of like it's happening in time, but also not really. So I think that's just what it is. Like, as long as you just kind of give me Bond and then you kind of just send him on a mission, I'm fine. It's weird where I feel like, at least for the Craig movies, I love the continuity for it, but if you just gave me mini arcs with new Bonds and just went, these are just Bond stories now, like, this is just like, if you put Bond in this situation, how would he react, how would he go through this?
Yeah,
I think
James
that's just
Bond in
what
the chocolate factory or whatever. Yeah,
I would watch that. Can you imagine Bond infiltrating Willy Wonka?
Him just gunning down Oompa Loompas would be amazing.
Oh my god, the femme fatale is one of the
mowing 'em
Oompa
down.
Loompas.
Oh, that's hot.
No,
Addy, we haven't heard from you.
Yeah, shifting gears. Actually, there's something I did want to mention. This is completely off topic, so I am going to shift gears here for a second.
Do it.
But when we were talking earlier about the tropes, I don't think we mentioned this, but how did we not mention the fucking evil lairs and the whole fucking when you get to that big reveal?
I was thinking about the corny villains.
Yeah, and in this movie specifically, that was one of my favorite parts, is when they get to the island and the evil lair of fucking Sam Raimi's, and just how much it was dripping, and they go to this fucking pool with all these deadly flowers and acid everywhere, and it was just so great, and it made me like, I think I liked Sam Raimi's character like more than you guys did in this movie. I thought he was great.
Wait,
And
Sam Raimi?
Sam Raimi, Jesus Christ,
Raimi.
Rami Malek. What is wrong?
How you kept saying Sam Raimi, and I was like, well, I guess it's a little Sam Raimi camp-esque if you really want to stretch.
Sam Raimi directing Bond.
Yeah.
Oh, well, no, I'd be in.
I was trying to say him acting in it. I don't know if Sam Raimi would be a good actor in Bond, but
probably not.
Or good evil villain. No, Rami Malek, excuse me. And yeah, when you get to his evil lair, and it's so dripping with fucking typical Bond evil lair shit, and it was so good. It reminded me, that stuff in particular reminded me of like vintage Bond, like just that good shit.
I wanted to ask about Rami Malek. As far as I know, and people have brought this up as a plot hole online, I don't think they do a very good job of having his character transition from like, I want to kill all of Spectre, to just, let's just fucking kill tons of people, like tons of random people.
Hold on. Also fucking hilarious how they just kill off Spectre in like minutes.
Oh,
fucking
it's great.
comedic.
Like the entire organization is dead because of this stupid goofy scientist who makes a few.
I like how they have
Yeah.
Bond right there as well, and like tons of Spectre agents all around him, and they're like, oh hey, here's Bond, like here he is, and then the thing doesn't kill him, but everyone else is just like, fuck it, like like, whatever. No one even tries to like, oh shit, that like surely the organization has at least heard of him at this point and knows
Oh
he's
yeah,
like enemy number one, right?
Yeah, I guess the answer to your plot hole is evil villain.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I thought. Like,
Yeah,
what?
and
It's
Yeah,
kind of
like
stupid
I don't
that the
think there
fact
is
that
an
it's
answer.
just it's kind of cheesy. I mean, the entire sequence of them just getting the smallpox or whatever was like kind of darkly funny, but in a
Oh
Bond way.
yeah.
But also when you're talking about Rami Malek's evil lair, it's this old like 1950s era Soviet missile silo, and he
Oh,
just
it's
has
perfect.
he just has a trap door on his little room that he just like lowers himself
Oh,
and the
Oh,
girl
gold.
into.
That
Yeah, I
was
was
so
just like,
good.
this is it was so Bond. It's just like subtle things like that. I'm like, okay, of
Yeah.
course he does.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
that
Um,
was really missing from a lot of Craig's other
yes.
antagonists as well, because I was quite disappointed with that. I think he's had a pretty weak run of villains, at least until
Skyfall. Hey,
I mean, even
Skyfall, yeah.
until
yeah,
Skyfall. I think
yeah.
that even like Le
Lashif
Chiffre,
was pretty
right?
good. Lashif was good,
But
but like
he's carried
he
by
gets
Mads
killed off halfway through.
Mikkelsen. He's not carried by the like character they've written for him, because
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
he's like, oh, he's the banker or something. It's like, who cares? You try and like read about the villains, and it's and they control the water supply of blah blah, and they raise
That's actually a good
taxes
plot.
and
It's just
rig elections and stuff.
the movie had bigger problems.
Yeah, it's nice to go back to the sort of like evil lair, like I'm just gonna kill everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's my thing, and it feels like that was more prevalent in older films, and Craig's films have sort of missed that. In Craig's, especially the earlier films, it's like the villain is like a henchman of a henchman of a henchman who is a guy that like runs the UN from behind the scenes, and it's like or has some dictatorship or something. Like it felt like it was quite convoluted, and it's part of that like gritty reboot style that they're going for. But it's sort of, I don't know, it felt like they could have got more out of it, and I'm really glad with this film they were like, yeah, he's just insane and has tons of resources and this island, and we're not going to explain all of that stuff and like all of the intricacies.
Yeah.
Doesn't
and
matter.
I think
Bad guy killed good guys. That's all.
Yeah,
That
I
Yeah.
definitely like that more.
Yeah, Rami Malek is really good, especially with his eyes. There were times during the movie where I was expecting him to spontaneously blow up and erupt, kind of similar to what Daniel Craig
Yeah.
did with Blofeld in the little prison. But yeah, he did really, really well. I was very impressed. There's some goofy continuity stuff. Like, did they ever explain how he survived like all of those bullets in the opening bit? Like, he got lit up by Madeline when she was a child, and he just kind of like I don't
To
know.
be
he just,
fair,
Also, how
it
old
just
is he
looked like it was
supposed to
all
be?
just chest shots. Like he just kind of looked like, maybe we just assumed he had body armor.
But then Bond killed him at the end. Yeah, I guess so. I was kind of hoping it would reveal some body armor or something, because at the end, Bond just shoots him like 2 or 3 times and he's dead. So,
No,
okay,
but Bond
whatever.
It's a
shoots him
great
in the
scene.
head.
That's a great scene, by the way. He's so
Yeah.
defeated, and it's just like boom, 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 boom. Fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't even
Yeah.
have like a line to give him. He's just
No,
he's
he's
just
just like,
so
"Fuck."
angry that he just kills him. It's
But
great.
that's a little subtle thing that's typical of his type of Bond, right?
Yeah,
But yeah, it's just subtle, goofy stuff like that. I'm like, okay, whatever. It's Bond.
I assumed it was
Um,
just body armor.
yeah.
Because he does that
Yeah.
little gasp
Yeah.
thing too, which I think that means I don't know the science.
Yeah,
of it, but I
like-
think there's something to do with that.
Yeah, he had like a weird look to his face and everything, but okay, whatever. It's
Yeah,
just dumb
he's
Bond
like
stuff, but
he's like knocked out by the like blunt force of the
Yeah.
bullets hitting the armor rather than the bullet penetrating.
No, but
his
he even
flesh
falls
or-
and like hits his head. So
Yeah.
there's reason.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't understand how old he's supposed to be though. That's a bit odd. But
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
that-
they put
that
little-
one
they
was
put some
weird for me.
gray. They put some gray streaks in his hair, I think, and made his skin look a little bit more wrinkly. I'm like, yeah, I just went with it. Okay, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again,
yeah, I
it's
guess
Bond, right?
you don't see much of him as well when in like the flashback, because he's got the mask on and the big coat and everything. So I guess
Yeah.
that kind of helps as well. But it is a bit odd that like she's a child and then he's like he kind of seems like he's the
Mhm.
same dude. in
I'm
terms
kind
of-
of convinced Rami Malek didn't have to act for this movie either. Like he just kind of rolled out of bed and is like, okay,
Yeah,
it's
it's kind of
gonna
like
kill some people.
It's kind of like Jared Leto with Blade Runner 2049. Just go out there, just get in front of the camera
No.
and do your usual thing.
No, stop it. I don't want Rami Malek put in the same breath as Jared Leto. God damn it. No, stop it. I'll take Mr. Robot over 30 Seconds to Mars any day.
early Jared Leto. I still think Jared Leto's pretty brilliant in
He is.
Suicide Squad.
Oh, God,
Masterpiece.
okay.
Masterpiece of a film.
Oh
No, please, no. Never. No one cut that out of the context.
oh.
Yeah, I don't know. Edwin, did you have any more broad topics you wanted to cover? 'Cause I
Oh
wanted
yeah,
to-
no, don't worry. I can keep driving. So I did
was
want to mention, like, what the hell was his plan? Because his plan was like, okay, I'm gonna get revenge on Mr. White. Okay, that's okay. At some point, he's also like, I want people to understand the connection that they have to each other. So because of that, I'm going to kill everyone. I didn't
Hell
really
yeah.
understand that. The other thing is like, okay, I assume he wanted revenge on Spectre. Okay, cool. I still understand that. It's literally the part where he's talking to Bond. He's like, the connections we have with other people are so important. So that's why I'm going to kill Millie, and so everyone could understand the importance of connection. Like, I didn't
Yeah.
understand that.
And then he went on some the usual kind of megalomaniacal diatribe about how people want freedom versus what they really want. And again, it was
I
just,
want
I
my
don't know.
family members dead.
It was like he regressed to the traditional Bond villain mean
Mhm.
of, I'm just going to be megalomaniacal and try to kill people. But I thought what was an interesting wrinkle at the end there was that you have Bond who discovers that he has more people closely attached to him than he realizes, versus Rami Malek's character, who really has no one left to live for, and that's really kind of defined his character's entire life, right? So he literally has no family left; they were all wiped out. So he really has nothing for himself left to live for, and I think that's the core of his character. Maybe I'm looking too much into it for a Bond villain, but that was just my.
I want to say something really quickly about Rami Malek's character, because something that really impressed me about the script. Maybe I was just like stupid and asleep for half the film, but as far as I know, when Rami Malek is talking to Madeline and he's threatening her, to do the Blofeld murder stuff, when he's talking to her, he's like, he threatens her people that she cares about. And she's like, "Oh, I don't care about anyone." And then he's like, "That's a load of bollocks," basically is what he says. And then she's like, "Oh, okay, I'll do it." And then the next scene, it cuts to like Bond walking. And so you're sort of like thinking at that point, oh, he's going to go after Bond or something. But
Yep.
then it's revealed later that she has a daughter. And then that conversation is recontextualized. You're essentially sold like a false lead, essentially. And then later, oh, he's actually referring to her having a daughter and like
Mhm.
threatening her and not threatening like Bond or whatever. I thought that was really clever in terms of how it's
Yeah,
written and how it's delivered.
it was doubly clever because, obviously at the beginning of the movie he kills the mom and saves the daughter, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
I'll do
yeah,
the
it was
same thing
really well
again,
done.
damn it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Touching on the
Uh,
daughter for a second, I love the bit where there's that scene where basically he's like Rami Malek still kidnapped the daughter. What's her name again? Sorry, the daughter's name.
I
Does
feel
anyone
like
know?
it's Madeline again, or like
Madeline or
it's some
something. Okay,
other
Something
name with an
similar.
M. Where I'm just
okay,
like, can you please have given her a different name? Damn
yeah.
it!
We'll call her Maddie.
Yeah,
Anyways, he's carrying her, and she like bites his finger, and he's just like, "Do you not want my protection? Okay, fuck off," and then just leaves.
I
Like,
yeah, I
hated
like.
Really
that
he
weird.
just
so much.
leaves the
I
kid. He
hated
doesn't
that.
fucking care anymore.
I like that because I guess from his perspective, he's like, okay, my plan's done. It's in
Yeah, he
motion.
doesn't
Nothing,
care.
nothing can stop it. Yeah, he doesn't really care. He
I,
just he
I thought
just
that.
literally used her as a pawn. Yeah,
Yeah,
Oh,
I thought it
okay,
was hilarious.
Madeline and Mathaline. So
Oh, it's
fuck off for
terrible.
naming her. Yeah,
Yeah, that
oh
whoever
yeah,
whoever came up with that name should be forced to watch Spectre a couple times on repeat.
Mathilde. Mathilde. Ugh, the fuck is that name? Why would you do that? It's already bad enough they're speaking French.
But yeah, that was another little subtle thing for me for his character, and I don't know.
No,
I
man,
really, I
I
really
hated
enjoyed the job they
that.
did with that.
I hated that. I was like, dude, what are you, a villain? Like, what is wrong with you? You're giving up
It
the one thing that you can hold in front of you that would stop Bond from putting a bullet between your eyes? Like, what are you doing?
it felt like they didn't know how to get her from being with it, because then the next time you see her, she's like back in a room from a few scenes ago, hiding under a table. And then there's like some dialogue that's like, "Oh, you did what I told you to do," and then she's like, "Yeah, yes, mommy, I hid like you said," and it's like, what? Like he just let you
well,
go, like you didn't hide
yeah,
really. He just let you go, and then you like ran backwards to like
yeah.
two
I feel like
scenes
that.
ago, and
I
you
feel
were
like
like,
that.
No, she's just
I
trying to
feel
make
like
it
that
sound
letting
impressive.
her. I feel like that letting her go. I feel like that letting her go thing was added really late in the edit, because the
Yeah.
hiding thing is a harken back to the original scene, right? Where Madeline was hiding from him,
yeah,
right?
it's like
So
disjointed. In other words, they like didn't
yeah,
know how to get like how to go from like
yeah,
one to the other, and so they
yeah.
just
They
all they
barely made
had
it work.
they had like a 15-minute scene that was cut out or something, and they were like,
Exactly.
"Oh shit!" Like
I,
like
I don't
it,
know. I
it
just
really
thought,
feels like they had to sort of stitch it together.
as
Yeah.
someone who hates kids, I just thought it was hilarious because it's like, yeah, I'd rather just fucking let you go than deal with you for another 2 minutes, you sniveling little fucking brat.
If Dorian was a Bond villain, that's the exact thing he would do. The moment that he
Yeah,
kidnapped Bond's kid, he'd be like, "Ah, you know what? I forgot. This is a child. Actually, we're gonna do a different plan. Get the fuck out of here. We're changing shit in the middle of it."
exactly.
But I did like the kind of the broad extended scene where he's holding her and he's taking her around to these different plants. It
Mm.
really added some really good threatening drama without like a
Yes.
standard like knife or gun. It was really well
Yes.
done.
Oh yeah, because the plants are the knife.
Yeah, the plant, it's like, oh, plants are pretty and kids want to touch them, right? Like, they want to touch bright, shiny things that are theoretically delicate, right? Delicate as a flower and this, that, and the other. And yeah, that was really well done. I liked that little scene.
Are any of you familiar with the YouTube channel Tom Scott?
No,
No.
this is gonna be something new for me.
He does it's so stupid. He does like he goes to different places in the world and he like says like interesting stuff about them basically. And there was one where he went to and he's like this like really mostly pretty like cheerful upbeat British YouTuber. And so there's one
Upbeat
where he
British,
goes
choose one.
to there's one where he goes to this, it's basically like a tourist attraction garden where it's loads of the world's deadliest plants and stuff. So I'm just thinking of like a Tom Scott video which kind of cuts through the drama in an unintended. It's like I'm sort of melding the two together in my mind, and that's not intended, and kind of ruined part of the scene for me. I'll have to send the video to people. God, it's
Please tell me which one I need to look up. Like I have it up on YouTube. Tom Scott. What is going to go next in the search bar?
I don't remember the name of it. Just put like dangerous garden or something like
Dangerous
like
Garden. That is
dangerous
good enough for me.
plants.
Okay. Okay, so the ending, the rest of the ending, God, I did really love just that small touch of seeing Madeline and Madeline. Fuck it, I'm just gonna call both of them Madeline. I'll mention if it's older or younger. When Madeline is just on the boat and you just see the sunlight envelop them, I was actually kind of thinking at that point, like, oh, okay, Bond's gonna get through this. Like, this is fine. Did at any point did it cross your mind that you know what, Bond could die?
That he could die. Oh yeah, I pretty much assumed he was a goner from the beginning of the movie. Like
Really?
yeah, no,
Yeah,
like
I
you kind of
was
had to. They painted themselves into a corner because all these movies had such a close continuity to each other. I felt like if they didn't kill off Craig, I don't know how they would have gone on with it. Like it would have been very difficult for them to continue and kind of just reboot everything. For me personally, maybe I'm so used to that being how arcs end these days, and they could have gone in a different direction. But my assumption going into it was that he was going to die for sure.
I didn't think they were going to.
Yeah, like it's
I
Bond.
thought as well. I think another reason. So, I mean, first of all, I feel like it's maybe stating the obvious, but the character's never, no version of the character has died before,
Mhm.
right? So that's not how they usually end one actor's run as the character. And then, secondly, I think there was stuff like, I mean, people are memeing about, the name of the film, right? Like, no time to die dies. Like, like.
No, you just dropped the no.
What the fuck, and then but in more serious sense, the stuff with like Felix Leiter dying early on,
Oh, that hurt.
it kind of made me think as well, like, oh, so like that's that's already a big death, right,
Yep.
of like a character. So it's kind of like when you watch you just watch a piece of media or a piece of drama or horror or whatever, and you're sort of, oh well, they've got to kill someone, and then once they've killed someone, you're like, oh okay, so that's it, like they've done the
We got the kill
kill
count.
on the checklist that makes people in the audience start crying. So you sort of almost get a false sense of security after that happens, because you're like, oh, so that's the one, right? That's the one
Mhm.
everyone's going to be talking about, but it's not.
Just them killing Felix Leiter hurt because it just reminded me of License to Kill. The reason I was so into License to Kill was the fact that the movie opens up with Felix Leiter getting married and then the Colombian drug cartel coming back and I think not only murdering his wife, but I think raping her as well, and then kidnapping Felix Leiter and feeding his like left leg to a shark. And after that point, I was just like, holy fuck, Bond, you need to take down these Colombians for doing this shit, okay? So as soon as they mess with Felix Leiter in this one, I was like, Bond, I need you to wreck fucking shop, okay? I love Felix Leiter. Take them the fuck out. And I thought
and-
that, I thought that was gonna be the thrust. I didn't think Bond was gonna die too.
Also, fuck that Zac Efron lookalike looking goof, whoever that guy was, man. I didn't like
Fuck
him.
that guy. I
liked
hated him in
for,
Game
for
Night.
being, he's so like hateable, but like
Yeah, he's very
I
hateable.
think they did it in like a really good way. Also, I was gonna say as well, something that makes that like almost more tragic is the stuff with Felix Leiter, is that Bond can't save him from like drowning, and it's how Vesper died as well. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
what I was
he's,
thinking.
like, he's being like double fucked by that. It's like you're almost like that's how he's gonna die, right? Like he's gonna end up drowning because he nearly did in Skyfall as well. So
It
like,
actually
twice
did
in
kind of
Skyfall.
annoy me that scene didn't that's the thing. I knew for sure I was being reminded of Vesper just like you. I assume everyone here was being reminded of that. I really was annoyed because I was kind of hoping that the movie would lean in more into that, like just be a bit more heavy-handed with it. Yes, we got it, but I wanted it to be a little bit more obvious that Bond kind of realized it too. Because I mean, you have the opening with Vesper, him slowly trying to come to terms with the fact that, yeah, you know what? I think I've gotten to a point where I can finally let you go. And then, of course, the explosion goes, ha ha, you fucking idiot. You think you can grow out of this shit? It would have felt nice if Felix Leiter would have been a good catalyst for him to remember that, no, you try to let go. A bomb told you no. This is your second chance to try to let go. He did, but I kind of wanted the movie to be a little more obvious about it, outside
Yeah.
of it just being, well, yeah, he's on a boat, so what is going to kill him? Water, I guess. So I just kind of wish that they made it a little more obvious that that was the intention instead of maybe a coincidence.
Yeah, they skimmed over it. I agree with that. They could have been a bit more what's the word? Like could have been
Deliberate.
yeah, deliberate. They could have been a bit
I
more obvious with it. Yeah.
I disagree. I think I like that it's ambiguous. I think that as well it kind of fits Daniel Craig's character of like he's like not thinking about it or just like, you know, got a job to do type thing, and that like revenge is sort of his outlet for that kind of thing. Craig's version of the character's got a lot of rage as well, like
Yeah.
a lot of anger, and he lacks composure. And so it's sort of like he's like channeling the death into like a determination, but not sort of reconciling it and sort of thinking about it and sort of putting it away from him. So I kind of felt like that fit, but I get what you mean as well. I agree with you in the sense of that it's like unclear if it's just like a very unfortunate coincidence or if it's something that was intentional.
I feel like to fix that, if you just included a scene of Felix Leiter underwater, if you had both of them underwater and Felix Leiter like punches him and he's just like, no, you fucking bastard, get out of here. And like Bond has to have like just give it like an extra 2 or 3 seconds of him looking at Felix Leiter. He shakes his hand and then swims away. Like there's something about that that feels like you still keep the subtlety of it, still being able to be reminiscent because it's underwater, but not exactly literally throwing up a flashback of Vesper and then him swimming away. Like I just feel like you could have done a little bit more just to let people know that if you read into movies, you know what you're doing. Okay, I get it. Instead of just right now where it feels like, well, was that an accident? Was that intentional? I kind of would prefer if they just made it a little more like, no, 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 this is a deliberate choice. This is something that you can read into.
What if Bond pulled out one of those like gas capsule things and shoved it in Felix Leiter's mouth and then got him to bite down on it and it inflated him up like a balloon to the top of the boat, like Live and Let Die, like
It
how
would
he
have
kills
been
that.
a 10 out of
On to the
10.
chocolate factory.
What if they did a Live and Let Die callback instead of the Vesper callback?
Now,
Then
what
everything would be happier, right?
I would need him to float up, and then as soon as he pops, I would need to hear just Paul McCartney jump in and go, "Live and let die." And then as Bond is swimming away, you just keep playing the theme.
Yeah, that would fix the scene.
Don't edit out that silence. And don't die.
I'm sorry, I fucking hate that idea. Okay, so one thing that I did want to mention, God, this movie was gorgeously shot, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love my boy. Like so we didn't even touch on it yet. They do the one shot action scene without
Yeah.
any cuts in this. Now it's not as good as his famous one in True Detective, obviously.
Well, yeah,
But
obviously.
it was really cool that they threw that in there, and they actually did a really nice job with it too. Cool to see that in the Bond film.
Okay, now I can't remember. What was the one shot? Was it in Cuba?
The stairway shoot.
When they're fighting up
The stairway, kind of John Wick, kind of like the John Wick
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah.
There
Or
are
the
a couple
music.
of cuts in that scene, but
Oh, are there?
yeah, there's one definitely towards the end of the
Yeah,
fight
there's one
scene.
towards the end, but I think a lot of the stairway content, I think it's a good couple of minutes or so.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
felt like a one shot. I don't remember
Yeah.
that.
I definitely
Yeah.
remember there's a cut because at the point where I noticed it was one shot for a while, and
Oh,
so
must
then I
skip.
was
Yeah.
like, you
Let's
know,
get at
when
the end,
then your
Fair enough.
brain is like, now I'm gonna look for the cut. Like, have they? And then like immediately after that, I saw a cut.
Yeah, it
So
was probably right
but I
near
don't
the
know. I
Yeah,
don't know where it
I
is.
remember
Like,
there was definitely a cut when he made it up into that main control room. But yeah, it was definitely
Oh,
a
the
deliberate. It
ending.
was
Okay.
definitely a deliberate one shot, which I
Because it lasted for a couple
yeah,
of
it's
thought
like
minutes.
was cool.
3/4 of the fight
Yeah,
is one shot.
Yeah.
it was kind of like his little, I don't know, superhero moment, if you will. And kind of going back to the other discussion, I thought near the end of that, when the music kind of kicked up and he's doing his little kind of action sequence thing, I'm like, okay, this is probably it for him, overall, when he's going back. Well, that was the first time, but when he went back to shut off the thing, I'm like, okay, they're probably going to kill him off now.
Yeah.
The film's another misdirect in terms of he sees, I guess I'll call her Matilda. Is that how you pronounce the whatever? You
Just
know,
little Madeline.
yeah, Mad
Yeah.
Max.
Yeah, Mad Max.
Yeah,
That's
she,
perfect.
yeah, Bond like finds her like stuffed animal and picks it up to like bring
Oh,
to her, and then he never gives it to her because it gets blown up. So that was a really good misdirect, and also adds to the tragedy, and is sort of understated because yeah, he sort of sees it, picks it up, and then it's never brought up again, and obviously he never brings it back.
God, that scene really
I'd hope
hurts.
not, otherwise they'd be dead.
Yeah, he
What did she call
throws
the
it.
stuffed animal? She called it
Uh,
what, Dum Dum or something, or
No,
uh,
Dum Dum
no,
Dum?
doo
no,
doo,
no.
doo
Doo
doo.
doo.
Yeah, I thought that
Potato? I
was
don't know.
I thought she was referring to her father. I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
god, it was like really hard. But no, it was the stuffed animal, which is still emotionally affecting. But
Mhm.
yeah, to go back to the beautiful shots. There was that one early on when Rami Malek in the mask is walking towards that kind of privacy door window, and it
Oh,
kind of fragments his mask. That was a cool shot. There was another one where the Spectre agents are rappelling up the
yes.
building with the kind of, I don't know if it was sunset or whatever.
Yeah, Sundown.
Then there was another shot early on when Daniel Craig is burning the note, and it transitions, and that, I swear, it must be like a ripoff from the famous Lawrence of Arabia shot, where he's lighting the match and it transitions into the sunrise or sunset. Yeah, those are some shots that stuck out to me off the top of my head.
Just because I'm going to use this one as a transition point, the
Yeah,
scene of seeing Ana de Armas on the ground, like from a sky view, and just shoots those three guys.
you could have just stopped after seeing Ana
Well,
de
oh,
Armas,
I
but
know. I,
that's okay.
I know.
Yeah,
We
I know.
haven't talked about Cuba at all. Ana de Armas is a joy, and honestly, when she left, I was legitimately sad that my mom, the God Jesus,
Oh
that's a
boy,
Depiel as
oh
fuck.
boy, oh boy,
My
oh boy,
wife basically tapped
oh
me and
boy.
was like, "I know it's okay," and I was like, "No, you don't understand. She was so fun, and now they're taking her away from us."
Yeah, she was fun. She had that kind of like little bit of a ditz about her, but she was also competent. Yeah, that was great. That was definitely a good little change of pace.
Yeah, I really liked. I think I mentioned to you in DMs at one point. I think the first half of the movie is probably my favorite half. I think that the Italy, like all of that stuff before the intro, is really, really good. And then I really love all of the Cuba stuff up until Felix. I think that that is a really good action scene. And she's Ana de Armas. I hope that that's like the biggest. If they do a full reset, her not being in any future ones is like that's the most brutal aspect to me, because I think that it would be really cool if she was like a recurring character, almost filling in that Felix Leiter role where it's like she shows up for like different Bond movies to like help out for like a scene or a big set piece and then leaves and the film progresses. I think that would be a really cool direction to take her character, because yeah, she's brilliant in this and there's not enough of her in it,
Yeah,
and she's great.
that was a little bit of a misdirect too, because when you saw they released some promo still images, and when you see her, you're like, oh, she's gonna be the Bond girl. Good
Yeah.
heavens, help me, right? And no, not really at all, but in a fun way. So that was really really good. That was a pleasant surprise, for
Oh,
sure.
the moment they stopped to get a drink in the middle of the shootout.
Oh yeah, that was part of the cheese I was talking about, or the pulp I was talking about. I'm like, okay,
Yes.
we're still
Yeah.
having fun. We're still having fun in this overall portion of the movie. So I rolled with it for
Yeah,
sure.
it was silly, but that's the kind of stuff I like from
Like,
Bond.
I think I was actually giggling when I
Yeah,
saw
and
that.
it was it was kind of an additional payoff when they first get to the bar and she just starts chugging the martini. I was like, okay, that kind of winked at you that okay, we're doing the fun portion between that and the changing scene where he's getting in the tuxedo.
She's in it for so little though. Like I'd almost, I mean, again,
Yeah, but it
we've
was
we've already gone over all the continuity shit, but I would kind of like to see
yeah
her come back somehow. I don't know how, but like I would like to see that
yeah
character return because it was fun.
yeah because all of it was pretty memorable and fun. And I think the stuff after it, the stuff on the boat, Felix Leiter's death aside, and then doing the whole Blofeld stuff was definitely I think the weakest part of the movie overall for me.
Phylexia Leiter. Please bring her back. If it means that I get her back, but I have to deal with
What
this
was
007, I'm in.
what was her name? Paloma, right? I think something.
Yes, Paloma. So Cuba, yeah, I'm glad that we're all positive on it. Okay, moving on. 007, the new one, Nomi. How do we feel about her? Because honestly, the entire time I was like, you're just supposed to be a foil, so we know like how much of just a renegade Bond is. Like, I don't think I'd want her beyond that. Opinions jump out at you like,
She was perfectly fine for me, but I don't think she would
Yeah.
serve a purpose in any further movie.
I felt like the original plan was to have her more involved in the movie, but I think with whatever the direction they decided to go towards when it was fully decided on killing off Bond, like, okay, we're going to ultimately make this his movie entirely with that payoff. So yeah, so overall she was fine. I think the kind of early on in the movie with the when she was pretending to kind of be this random person, I think they were trying to build up to make her have more of an impact. But yeah, overall she was fine.
I think it's unfortunate that the whole subplot in Skyfall about, like, Bond, you're a washed up boomer, you
Hmm.
suck, all of that stuff. Like, it's kind of weird that that's in like the third of his fifth of his five films, and it's
Mhm.
kind of like a lot of her stuff as 007 is almost reiterating that sort of
Yeah.
aspect of, like, you're outdated, blah 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 blah. And I feel like Bond has done that since, like, they've kind of done that since Pierce Brosnan, even, like, giving references to, like, him being out of step and outdated
A
and
relic of the Cold War, the actual quote.
right, exactly. I feel like it's a bit tiring now. Like, it's kind of like it's not her fault or her character's fault. It's just kind of like, yeah, we get it. You've done that before, and I get that it's like a constant thing, right? Like, they've got to, what is the place of this character in the modern age and all of that. Like, I get that they kind of feel they need to do that, but at the same time, she's just sort of a plot device for that kind of discussion, and I never really felt they weren't really daring with her character in sort of either direction. I felt like she was just sort of there and sort of like, oh, she may be a problem, and then she's not a problem, and then it's over. Yeah, I kind of agree that, maybe they had more intentions and were like, this film's going to be too long, or we don't know how to do it and be respectful of the legacy of the character and the legacy of Craig's version of Bond, so we're not going to risk it. We're just going to sort of have her in it quite briefly and not really go many places with that sort of line of thought. So yeah, I think that general theme is handled better in Skyfall, and I don't think it's, yeah, I don't think her character's terrible or great. It's just,
I felt it was a good idea, but we're kind of really lost the plot for me. Like, I think you said it right. Like, they just didn't really want to commit in one direction or the other with it, it seemed. And then by the point they got to where she's like, "Oh, you can reinstate him as 007, like he can have it," I was like, "Oh, okay, we're going that route." Like, I think it would have been
That
more
just felt
fun if
like
they went the
whatever.
other route with it. Yeah,
I
and at that point, I just didn't care anymore.
I feel like there's some aspect of signaling for, like, law reasons. Oh, just because you hear 007, it doesn't mean it's James Bond, but there's only one James Bond, right? Like, and that almost ties into the whole, like, James Bond will return thing, because it's not, it's not 007 will return, because if it was, that would mean something completely different potentially. So I guess it's interesting in the sense of how the films and the IP views sort of 007 versus Bond in terms of, I mean, it's funny, people sort of are doomsaying about, because Amazon bought MGM, so they own 50% of Bond now. So people have sort of been joking and panicking about, like, Amazon's going to have, like, Amazon Prime, like, the 007 recruits, and it's going to be like, 10
No.
007s, like just
No.
like some absolute,
Jeff
yeah.
Bezos for next James Bond.
Yeah. Well, no, I was
Next Bond villain.
the next Bond villain's going to be like a megalomaniacal retail magnate or something. But yeah, one thing that I thought of early on that was a little, I don't know, maybe it was meant to be cheeky to kind of play with the audience, but M says early on, "Get me 007," and they didn't really indicate that was. But I think most people, at least for me,
It was Nomi.
yeah, at least partially for me, like I had associated 007, oh, Bond, right?
Mhm.
But no, it was actually her, and she like tossed him the cell phone and all that stuff. So I think that was a little cheeky little play on it.
Yeah, I think I actually, yeah, I quite like how they sort of set her up, and I quite like how
Yeah.
they set that up, but then they didn't do it. It
They
really
didn't do
does
anything
feel
with it.
like they were going somewhere, and then they, like, backed off from it. They're
Yeah,
like, no, no,
I
no, no,
don't.
no, no, no,
And
They
forget it.
just fumbled the
yeah,
execution.
yeah. I think it goes. I'm not sure what their ultimate intention was. Was she like kind of like another little bait and switch? Did they actually originally intend to make a little transition, a proper transition, or what? But I don't know. They're kind of stuck in a little bit of creative limbo as far as the continuity now. But overall, I think she was good. Her performance was good, and her overall role was itself was fine.
I don't know what exactly the plan was with her, because you would think that maybe the 5-year gap to be able to give Mad Max like an actual age to like where she can be around. I almost feel like that was like a casualty where it's like, oh, well, I guess we need to give them another 00 agent. But I think maybe they just went, well, what if we make it a 007? Like, I think maybe that's what the thought process was, and they just kept sticking with that because, like, there's look, you don't need her going, "You're old," because honestly, Skyfall already did that. And not only did Skyfall already did that, like AJ had said, other movies have done that, but
Mhm.
Skyfall did it perfectly because that was the entire meta narrative of Skyfall. The fact that it's interrogating what place does Bond have in our modern age of not only, the actual modern age of movies themselves, but also the modern age of, I guess, spycraft. What would be the
Yeah,
term?
cyber
Espionage?
terrorism and
Yeah,
stuff
exactly.
stuff like that being more of a factor.
Yeah, global espionage and intelligence gathering. Like, what spot does Bond have in all of this? And Skyfall does it so beautifully that I don't think you ever need to bring that up besides kind of like a sly dig. And the fact that she's 007 is a basic reminder of the entire movie of that sly dig, but they never do anything with it. And I don't know how I
Mhm.
feel. Like, would I prefer that they did something with it? Because I feel like if they did, it would just be worse Skyfall, and we already have Skyfall, and Skyfall's great.
Yeah,
So I think I almost prefer this.
Yeah, I was gonna say I definitely prefer them kind of defaulting to leaning towards the end of the character, because I think if you try to include any of that transitional stuff, it comes at the expense of completing the character's arc. And like Daniel Craig, regardless of what you think of the various movies, has been getting consistently excellent throughout all 5 movies. So yeah, I don't know. Obviously, we don't know what their future plans are, but I think they ultimately made the right choice, regardless of what their original intention was.
I really like the all of the stuff in Cuba, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
she's a part of that as well. I like the whole thing where they're both the CIA and MI6 are trying to get the scientist
Mhm.
out of there, out of
Yeah.
the Spectre place. I actually quite like that. So in terms of her character serving sort of different utility that isn't necessarily to do with that, I do quite like that angle of CIA versus MI6, and like also Bond's working for the CIA instead of the Brit. It's an interesting and more novel scenario. And then
Yeah, I think it's a good commentary on that the modern world is more morally convoluted and complicated than necessarily in the past, and certainly in other Bond films that are more straightforward. So
yeah, I just think it's a cool set piece for the most
yeah,
part. I'd
yeah,
say, like, I don't think about it too much on an intellectual level, I suppose. I like the stuff, where it's like she's grappling away and then like Bond shoots a anchor point, which is a bit fucked up. Like they could have both died or something.
yeah.
Like
That was crazy. They just like slammed into the wall. I'm like, oh my god, they should be like paralyzed, have all their
Like,
backs
their
broken and
head
stuff.
hit their wall, like, immediately
Oh
just
yeah, they splattered. Yeah, yeah. And then like Anna de Armas just crashes the car into the wood, was it the wood kind of structure, the facade or whatever it
scaffolding.
was? Yeah,
Yeah.
scaffolding. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was funny.
Okay, so I did want to bring it up. I did enjoy 007 when she was there because it felt like you saw Bond and you saw Ana de Armas, and you're just like, both of you guys are just having so much fun. And then 007 over here is like the stick in the mud. And the contrast between the two of them was kind of what I liked. And it also kind of fits into how she is as a 00, because she is a person that was literally calling M, like, hey, so how do you want me to play this? And M even is like, your predecessor never asked me any of this shit. So, like, thank you for running it by me, I guess.
Yeah, she's more stealthy and grapples up the scientist, whereas Bond just like walks in the front entrance and is more overt about it. And then as well, like we've mentioned before about how they like stop for drinks as well mid fight scene, whereas she's like get in, get out type thing. But it's quite good in terms of the mythology of James Bond, in the sense of that he's so good that he can like do all of that and it like still works out for him, because he's just this like amazing agent that does whatever the fuck he wants, basically, in
Oh,
terms of
damn
the
it.
character.
That's a missed opportunity. You guys remember in Casino Royale with the airplane, how he gets caught, but he still gets the mission off and like the man blows up? I kind of wish that Nomi had gotten caught so you can just kind of have Bond give a little moment like, huh, first mission, huh? Or something like that.
Yeah, that would have been pretty funny. Yeah, that was a cool contrast of her being the kind of younger, I guess maybe more idealistic, more rigid and deferential character, versus Bond is kind of, that one scene was really kind of classic, more pulp cheese Bond. So it was kind of cool to see those two worlds kind of collide for a sequence there. It was fun.
One thing I just want to throw out, because I actually turned to my wife and whispered to her this. This is probably leading nowhere. This is just going to be a dead end of a conversation. But whenever they mention the nanobots, right, and how they can code in DNA to kill a specific person, I turned to my wife and I was like, "That's just Fox die from Metal Gear Solid 1." And she looked at me and was
Nanomachines.
like, "Oh shit, you're right." So
We'll Well, if she knew about that, then she's a keeper. So
I played the entire series for her up until Metal Gear Solid 4. We still need to play Peace Walker, so
I
okay.
love Kojima. Like he's like tweeted about seeing the film, and then also he like starts like tweeting about and uploading to his Instagram like pictures with like Leia Sado and
Hell
all
yeah, man.
this.
Yeah,
Like, he's
man.
like, yeah,
He's a fanboy.
she's
He's
in
sipping,
my
man.
game. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
sipping,
he-
man. Yeah, well, she's a
he sips so hard for movie stuff, man. I love Kojima. Bless his heart.
yeah,
yes.
she's excellent. If any of you or the audience hasn't seen any of her movies, she's excellent, and I think she was the best performance I think in
He was very
the
good in this
entire
movie.
movie. She was excellent, and
Yes.
she's done. She's obviously she's French. She's done a lot of mostly European based films, but she's always good in virtually everything she's in. So definitely check out her other films.
And check out Death Stranding if you haven't. Good game.
To throw it out there, just because I think at this point it was just literally wrap up. I did love that Bond at the very beginning still can't learn to trust, and so he just completely dumps Madeline. That was painful.
Yeah, I think that defines his character, right? Going back to Casino Royale, the original kind of betrayal with Vesper, even though it was against her will, she was ultimately conflicted about it. But yeah, I think that's kind of defined his character's origin, and I think that's always kind of the way Bond has been. I don't think we really ever had his origin for why he is that way explored.
Mhm.
In the way
It's,
that it has been throughout these movies.
it's another frustrating. Mentioned it earlier with sort of the Blofeld situation and with Madeline in terms of that as well and being blackmailed. But it's another situation where you sort of like, why don't you people just talk to each other? Because it is essentially that whole thing is kind of a misunderstanding, although it's more understandable here, I think, as well, because I can totally understand
Yeah,
like
but what could
James
she have
getting her.
said though to
Yeah,
convince him?
yeah, well, it would have been, it would have had to be something that she would have done sooner, right? Like before everything happened that happened. But it's something where was pretty justified. Like I know they try to do there's a level of like cruelty of like Blofeld being like, oh, she didn't betray you, and haha, sucker, and it's kind of like,
Which is funny because that felt like a better implementation than what it was in Spectre, where in Spectre he was like, "Yeah, by the way, all I've done, everything of the previous movie, that was me."
yeah, that's stupid. Yeah, oh man. But yeah, it is a better version of that. And yet but also you're sort of like Bond nearly got, blown up and killed and all this, and it is because Madeline held information from him to some
But what
extent in such
information?
a dangerous,
But what information?
well, everything to do with her past, right?
No, but like, what about her past do you think? Like, okay, what about Rami Malek killing her mom really would play into what she thinks with Bond? Like, Bond already kind of knows, like, yeah, you're a daughter of Spectre. Like, I don't know what she could have said to avoid all this.
Yeah, I mean, the problem for me is that it's unclear because that when they're driving away, right? Like when he's driving her to the train station, she's like, "I need to tell you something." She's like, "I really need to tell you something,"
Probably pregnant.
or like, "We really need to talk." And then Craig's like, "Oh yeah, we do," and then they just don't, and because he puts her on a train and
Yeah, but she's
tells her to fuck
pregnant.
off.
Like, that's
Right?
what it is it not?
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but I get
I think it matches up because the girl
It's
has to
5 years. Like,
be,
she's 4 or 5.
yeah, five or six, yeah, something like that.
yeah, that they never, I don't know, it feels like the characters don't communicate with each other in some ways, and I think it works well enough, but it's close to not working, I think.
Yeah, that's part of, again, that's part of my kind of primary issue with the movie is that they tried to piece it together and do a wrap up of the overall arc as best as they could, and I think it barely holds together for the most part, and the actors are good enough, and I think the writing is for the most part sharp enough to pull it off.
The characters withhold information from each other in a way that sets everything up perfectly, and it
Yeah.
makes you question that things could have been different, and it's unclear like how flawed the film is because of that, I guess is what I would say.
Okay, I'm gonna need examples because, like, the only one that came to mind was Lea Sado not telling Bond about the fact that Rami Malek is around. Like, but also I feel like I could write myself out of there by being like, well, it's been 5 years. Does she really trust Bond after he just dumped her like that?
Well, I mean, she also has another opportunity to say something to him when Bond grabs her and she wants to leave, right? She's like, "Oh, I need to get out. I need to get out." She has another opportunity to talk to him then. He's sort of been made like a part of her scheme, essentially, that she doesn't even want to do, which is a bit awkward in terms of the character dynamics to some extent. And it's also that scene isn't helped by the fact that it's convenient that Bond grabs Blofeld by the throat as well, of course, because
but
you know when you see it, you're like, okay, so Bond is also going to have to get angry and
Yeah, you do like a
stab him as well.
process of
Like,
elimination. Yeah.
Yeah,
you're
I mean
like,
that was
okay,
so
so I
choreographed.
can basically see the script before it happens because you're like, okay, so these pieces have to fit
Yeah,
together.
as soon as he became totally exposed, like a prisoner that's in like that max security prison, they're
okay,
not
that
gonna
yeah.
like leave it. They're never gonna leave it completely open like that to where they can easily touch each other. Like that's just dumb. So you kind of know, okay, someone is touching someone in this scene, right?
Phrasing.
To be able to, yeah, to be able to get some kind of resolution on this, getting someone poisoned or whatever. So
Okay, the open area being convenient. Yeah, I can buy that. I'm okay with that one.
yeah,
By the way, we
Okay,
haven't talked about the score, but shout out to Hans Zimmer. Beautiful score in
it's
this
fucking
movie.
hilarious because another time I turned to my wife was whenever Bond was running back near the water. I was just like, "Hey, do you recognize what this is?" And she's like, "What?" I was like, "It's Hans Zimmer. He's doing the whole thing where he's doing the da 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 da." And I was just like, "This is the most Hans Zimmer that Hans Zimmer has ever Hans Zimmered."
It's
Like
very
it
Hans
was
Zimmer.
comedic.
I really liked how they integrated stuff from, On Her Majesty's Secret Service into the score as well.
Which is funny because that's the only one that I didn't like.
Yeah, I mean, it fits, right? Because of course, I mean, they make a lot of sort of overt references to it, especially right at the end. But
Mhm.
in terms of it being like a flip on that, right? Because Bond's spouse dies in terms of on a Majesty's Secret Service, and then in this he's the one to die. So it's expectations subverted.
Oh God, please
Congrats.
stop. No, no. Look, we have too much Daniel Craig here. We have too much Ana de Armas here. Please don't invoke that.
yeah, and
Okay.
shout out to Daniel Craig and Anna de Armas reteaming from Knives Out. I had forgotten about that.
Yes, exactly. And
That's
that's
a good
why
one.
that connection there. I was like, "Ooh."
She was in Knives Out?
Yeah.
Who'd she play in Knives Out?
Yeah, she
She's
was the
like the
maid.
main
She was the maid
woman.
who.
Oh, she's totally different in this movie, huh? Yeah, I guess so.
I don't know about that. She just still looks as. I'm gonna stop there.
Mm,
We're not
It's
going to
okay.
get. Actually, no, Passive Pixels is canceled. Congratulations, everyone.
Well, yeah, hold on. What? I was saying she's attractive. What? Why isn't that canceled?
Well, I thought you were going to go more womanizing with it. Than that.
Oh no, 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 no! I'm not gonna be
Okay.
sexist to Ana de Armas. She's great. I'll be sexist to
Well-
everyone else, but not her.
Well, okay, but I mean, that's not usually your MO, Ed.
That is
in this
correct.
house, in this house, we love and respect Anna de Armas.
Yeah,
The end.
she gave me so much joy in this movie. Like that, as soon as she left, I felt so sad. And then they killed Felix Leiter shortly after, and was like, "This is the worst day of my life. This isn't what I planned to do today." Okay.
Don't worry,
Yeah,
Knives Out.
shout out to Jeffrey Wright. He's always great.
He is great.
as Felix Leiter.
Knives Out 2 will perk you back up, Ed. Don't worry.
And Knives are outer. I can't wait.
Knives Are Outer exclusive to Netflix. Electric Boogaloo Part 2.
I'm so in. Okay, one thing, just I'm pretty sure this is the last bit, unless you guys want to drive it from here. Just that final scene where Bond is fighting Rami, just Bond's finally getting to just. Oh, there's something about that fight where he finally gets to let loose, and I'm so glad that this movie felt a bit more like an actual PG-13 movie that we remember instead of the sanitized PG-13 that we got. Like whenever they were assassinating the scientist, I was like, "Oh shit, that's pretty good." And just being able to break his arm like that, the close-up headshots, I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so glad that this feels like it was allowed to be a little more violent than at least a whole bunch of other movies that I can remember."
Yeah, I agree. No, there was definitely
Yeah.
some good shots in there that made me think that they were pushing that PG-13 just a little bit more. It was actually PG in Canada. They got the old
Was it?
blue PG rating.
I remember
here,
the
yeah.
very opening scene in Casino Royale. I think was in black and white too, right? Because
Yes.
it was so intense. I think they like almost had to do it that way, or otherwise it
So
would have been
n-
pushing an
I
R rating or something. That was the
I
story I heard or read. So.
I don't think so because at least from what I remember is that with Casino Royale, there's an extended edition that's technically unrated, and all it is just like a couple of seconds longer for some fight scenes, and for some reason
Okay.
that's what would have given them the R. So
Okay.
it's weird. I think the black and white was always a choice. It's just that I think like literally seconds were shaved off of some action scenes to go from R to PG-13. Fucking stupid.
Yeah, it's fucking stupid. But yeah, shout out to that scene. That was amazing. I mean, the first scene in the entire saga arc of these films was awesome. But yeah, okay. I think speaking of the scientists getting killed, that was a very Bond thing where you're just like, I'm gonna knock him into this poisonous water and kill him.
Mhm.
Was there a subtle moment? Not subtle, but was there a moment of racism there?
Yeah.
Where he's like, I can take out your entire. He's like, I can take out your entire race of people, and then she kicks him
Yes.
into the water.
Yeah.
That was
Oh yeah.
racism, like out of nowhere,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And that's why that was just
Okay.
him dying was so satisfying.
That was that was a little cringy though. I'm like, okay, that's kind
Yeah.
of out of nowhere, but all right, that's a good motivator to kill him. So okay,
It felt
He was
slightly
just
heavy-handed.
it was a bit.
yeah,
He was a
I can
tit.
take out. But if you're in his position, like maybe don't make a racist comment to someone who can easily kill you. I don't know.
But
Okay.
he
But
seems
again,
like the type of
that's
guy to
Bond.
do that. He's just an idiot.
Yeah.
That guy was
Yeah,
just a bumbling idiot.
yeah. He just doesn't have street smarts. He's obviously a
No,
scientist, but yeah,
exactly. He's no
yeah.
bedside manner. Like there's nothing
I
there.
can take out your entire race of people. I'm like, oh, you're dead.
You
Okay,
fucking
okay,
moron.
okay, whatever.
Okay, the whole speech that Satan has, where he's just like, "Oh man, you forced me to do this," like just all of that made me
Yeah,
so happy that was the moment where I almost feel like Rami Malek did that speech when he auditioned, and they're just like, "Yeah, you fucking nailed it. Who cares about what you do besides the rest of the movie? The fact that you nailed this, you're in."
And then he was like, "Oh, this is a movie."
Wait, say
yeah.
it
I
again?
think like go ahead, Eddie.
Oh,
Say it
I
again?
was just making another joke about Rami Malek being
Oh yeah,
extra
yeah,
like that.
yeah. Just recording him randomly. No,
Yeah,
yeah.
no,
But to go,
he just walked in there and was like looking for like a 7-Eleven and went on that speech.
it's
He
like
was like, "Oh wait, what? This is a movie?"
Ramy, do a Bond villain speech. And that's what he did. But no, I think what Addy said earlier. As soon as it was announced he was cast, I'm like, okay, yeah, he's a perfect Bond villain. That works.
Okay, I think that might be everything that I want to hit. From here, anything else that you guys want to take, or are we good on closing?
No, are we gonna give it a score or rating?
Yeah, we gotta give it a score and rating.
You're right, I guess. AJ, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Have
I
the
don't.
Americans speaking about Bond led you to kill yourself, or?
No,
He's planning 1812 again.
I think it's fine. I mean, there was some stuff early on, right? You forgot about some sacred traditions of Bond, but no, I
Yes, I
think
apologize.
I mean, it's crazy. I was surprised that we've all had a pretty big history with the franchise because I was looking at in terms of the returns of like the box office in terms of Bond films, and obviously the modern era are more than the past, which you'd probably expect. But I wasn't sure how much the franchise itself had broken through internationally, so
Yeah.
that's interesting to me.
Skyfall cracked a billion, man.
Yeah, I was gonna. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but the Bond films were on American TV a lot.
Yep,
Like
USA.
I think TBS, TNT, especially over the holidays, like they would just do like Sean Connery marathons or Roger Moore marathons a
Dude,
lot.
USA
Yeah,
only did Pierce Brosnan.
God, that's amazing.
yeah, I
But yeah,
saw.
yeah, they were on TV a lot, so it was cool. Like you'd always tune in, and they were pretty self-contained, right? You can just flip on whatever Bond film and watch it, and it was fun.
Yeah, I saw that because Daniel Craig got his Hollywood Walk of Fame star recently, and they put his star next to Roger Moore's. So I guess I was like, oh, it did obviously get international recognition back then as
Yeah.
well. So yeah, no, I'm not. I'm very impressed.
There's only one proper way to end this, though, right?
I mean, it's going to be the scores. Like, it's obviously going to be the
Well,
scores.
no, there's a better way
Oh,
though.
okay.
On the spot, right now, who's the next James Bond?
No, fuck.
That's the best
Oh.
way to do it.
Shit. Okay. Okay. You know what? I need to find his name. You guys, it's whoever wants to throw it out, I'll edit out the
Okay,
space.
so I'll go with. I've got two answers. One is who I think probably I'd like to see the most that is sort of feasible, and I guess that'd be Robert Pattinson. And then in terms of who it's going to be someone no one's ever heard of, probably.
Okay, I'll go. I'll say who I would want to see. I'll do what you did, AJ. Who I want to see and who I think will. Who I'd want to see is Idris Elba.
Well, yeah.
Who I think will is Robert Pattinson.
Okay. Poot.
We're still going to eventually do scores, right?
Yes.
I can do that too.
Okay. Okay. So I know he's kind of older, and I said him before, but I think Chiwetel Ejiofor would be an awesome Bond.
Oh.
I'm going to throw out a dark horse, Jack O'Connell.
Oh. Hold
Yeah.
on. Is that who I'm thinking of? Is that who I'm thinking of?
I'm just trying to think out of the box a little bit. So that's
I'll
just
say this: I don't care. Like at the end of the day, I'll whoever it is. I just hope it's not the dude from Game of Thrones that they're tossing out there. I don't want him.
Oh, you mean Rob Stark?
Yeah, I don't want him. I do not think he has the charisma to.
I don't think he has the charisma. Yeah, Robert Pattinson would be good. I mean, he's an awesome actor.
Oh shit.
So
He's
I would be down with
35
that.
as well, which is
Robert
okay.
Pattinson is 35. Okay.
I think so.
Poot, I just realized that Jack O'Connell was in Skins, which is the direction I was going to go in as well.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay, I was getting Jack O'Connell mixed up for the brother in Sing Street and the boyfriend in Midsummer. That's who I was getting it mixed up for.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, I can see that. What is his name?
That's what I was trying to pull up. That's like I'm
Okay.
furiously googling over here. Jack Rayner.
Okay.
Dark horse for
Yeah,
the
yeah.
next Bond, Barry Keoghan.
No, absolutely not. Hell no. No, do you like I felt some visceral anger when I saw him in a trailer for Eternals before
Oh my
Bond. I was
god.
like, why? Why are you here? Why do you
He would
torture me?
he would make a good Bond villain.
Oh,
Yes.
he
Say
would.
that.
A Bond, yes, because I would want to kill him instantly. Yes,
Can
he
you
would.
imagine? Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, I do not have a guess of who it'll be. I'll just throw this out. Nicholas Holt. Just Nicholas Holt.
Yeah, he would be good.
Possible. I heard that Henry Cavill said that he'd like to be a Bond villain, which would be
hell yeah.
interesting.
I would
Yes.
like
That'd be
him as a
interesting.
Bond villain over Bond for sure.
Yeah, he was good in Mission Impossible Fallout. So
Yes.
yeah, I approve of that.
Yeah, I could see him definitely doing like a kind of like a rogue agent type of villain. That would be well.
It's
Yeah,
a
like a
mustache.
Sean Bean
well,
Goldeneye
that's what he
type.
that's what he
Yes.
did in Mission Impossible. So
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
I mean, he already has the face. They did something with his face at the end of MI6 Fallout, didn't they? So like, it feels right. Hell, actually, wait, hold on. MI6, Mission Impossible 6, MI6. It's perfect. Yeah, put him as a Bond villain.
oh god. Another one is I think Aaron Taylor Johnson would be good as well. He's a pretty
Wait,
good actor. I think he's good.
No, hold on. You said Aaron Taylor Johnson, and I heard Anya Taylor, and I was like, what?
Well, she would be good in whatever, but that's another story for another day. So
Okay. Shall we go on to our stupid scores now?
Yes, let's give the
Yeah.
scores.
All right, Dorian. You're the only one who actually does a real score, I think. So go for it.
His scores too. Give the man some credit. But I will give my score. This movie is, like I said, I think everyone hit the nail on the head. I think it's the third in the Daniel Craig movies, if I'm ranking them. I think it's a very good movie.
Fuck you. I went 2.
It was done very well. It was a lot of fun. Good pulpy action. It's what I wanted from a Bond film. Definitely steps above Quantum of Solace and Casino Royale. So if I was to give it a score out of 10 on my usual Addy scale, I'd probably
Wait,
say it's
you go stars, don't you?
well, I'm going to go
I thought you
with the
go
10 for
I think
today.
you go out of 5.
I'm going to
Yeah,
go for the 10. I'm going to go for the 10 today because I want to go full Addy scale. We're going to call it banging, and give it a 7 out of 10.
That's a nice name for a Bond movie. Banging. That's good.
AJ?
I'm at a 7 as well. If I'm gonna give a serious score, I think.
Oh no,
think-
AJ! I just realized you don't listen to this show. So the whole structure is always that Dorian over here does a real score, and I do a joke score. So if you want to do
Right.
serious score, full, go for it. If you want to do a
No,
go for it.
Addy mentioned I do serious scores. I know that there's been
Is-
contention over serious versus joke scores before, but I do serious. So I'm sort of like begrudgingly giving a serious.
Oh no, that's fine. That's
Score,
fine. You can choose
because-
to do one. You can choose to do both. Play it as you will.
I've historically done serious scores, so if I go back on it now just to spite Addy, it's not, I can't do that.
Yeah, Canada British collation. Let's go.
So yeah, so I have to give it a 7 out of 10 as well. It was good. It was better than I expected it to be, but I'm just pessimistic. I'm like, everything's gonna suck, but it didn't suck. So there you go. Put that on the box. Didn't suck.
I'll call Universal right now. Poot, where are your scores?
Yeah, I enjoyed the movie more in some aspects than I expected to. I enjoyed it less in some aspects than I expected to. I think the biggest thing for me was I didn't expect to be so emotionally invested in multiple characters. Bond, Madeline, the daughter. I overall really liked the movie. I think I probably liked it more after thinking about it and chatting with you fine gents. Really well shot, sharp writing, some really good funny moments, some cheese. That all being said, my score is going to be Ana de Armas dual wielding out of 10.
That's a phenomenal score. Okay. I hate it that
Collect
you.
yourself.
I think you kneecapped me because I think one of my scores was going to be Ana de Armas's glare while she's dual wielding. Because like that glare, looks like, oh, okay, all right. I kind of
Yeah,
wish that you were
go
more
ahead.
in the movie.
Just go ahead and shoot me. It's okay.
So I'm gonna go and lead into Daniel Craig in general. Spectre is the worst one. It is a boring movie that occasionally reaches moments where it's like, oh wow, I enjoyed that. Right above that is Quantum of Solace. Quantum of Solace to me just feels like it got really fucked over by the production when I think that could have been a very good movie. Where if anyone were to ever remake one movie and I got to choose, it would either be The Butterfly Effect for some reason, starring Ashton Kutcher. And then the other one would be Quantum of Solace. Just go in there, keep it in the same continuity. I don't fucking care how you do it. Change the actors. Just remake that. I will be happy. Right above that is going to be Casino Royale for me, because Casino Royale, while I do enjoy it very much, once you get into the last act, it always feels like it drags on rewatches and you're just waiting for the turn. So just for that little sliver of a complaint, like, I still very much like that movie, but just for that sliver of complaint, I'm going to put it below No Time to Die, because No Time to Die did not have a moment where I went, okay, can we remove this along? So No Time to Die is right there. However, Skyfall, by the fact that it's sheer meta narrative, makes me love that one more than anything else, because even if you've watched one Bond movie or all of them, you can still get the same impact of understanding what the question that's presented. I love No Time to Die. I'm going to give it a fuck, man, I really got kneecapped with that score.
It's what I do best.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. Kind of thought that through talking about all of that, I would have arrived on the score. I'm gonna give it a clink of a drink at the end of the movie out of 10. There we go.
Surprisingly tame.
Yeah.
I was hoping for,
I,
Felix
I-
Leiter inflating like a balloon and exploding at the ceiling of a ship out of 10.
Yeah, I'm let down, Ed. I'm sorry.
I am
Poo
too.
fuck you there. Poo fuck
You
you.
could have said like Anna de Armas. Anna de Armas exploded my eyeball out of 10 or something.
No, because like while she's a very attractive woman, I loved her personality more than anything else in this movie. Like, she was just so bubbly in this movie. I was like, oh my god, we just need to protect you. Like, we just need to make sure that you stay safe from all of this.
Of course.
All right, we got all that out. Are we good? Any final words?
I just want to say props to Daniel Craig. He was excellent throughout all the movies, and I was glad that we experienced a Bond arc with him as Bond.
Damn right. AJ, any final words?
Yeah, congratulations, Daniel Craig. I know you're listening to this
Obviously.
show, so good job. Hope the millions of dollars were good, but our love for you is greater than that in terms of importance and significance. So congratulations.
Addy, any final words?
God bless Daniel Craig and Breath of the Wild sucks.
Well, you're fucking wrong for that last one.
That's just uncalled
Yeah,
for.
exactly. Well, salute to Daniel Craig. Thank you for these movies. End card. Hey, look at you. You got to the end of the episode. From episode 0 to the day that I finally get lazy and cancel the show, a big thank you to Joey Rawlings for providing the perfect name for the show. Be sure to always give him thanks, either out loud as you're listening to this, or you can just send him a thank you tweet at boogeyman117_. That's boogeyman117, IE instead of Y, double O. Be sure that it's an underscore, not a dash, 117.